Hello and welcome back to On The Esky. The boys are back for another massive session of sports from around the world. Big show today. We've got to get stuck into the NRL Grand Final coming up on this weekend. We will review the AFL Grand Final from previous weekend as well. Congrats to the Ds. There's lots of cricket going on. There's IPL kicked off, some Shield games too. Then, of course, we'll do the NFL hour and get stuck into week 4 coming up. And then we'll wrap up with a final review of UFC 266, F1. There's some Champions League news and, of course, the Ryders Cup. As always, if you enjoy this content, please consider subscribing or following along, leaving us comments of how good or bad our dribble is. And as always, there are timestamps for the various sports throughout, linked below. But I think I'll bring in the boys. Hello, Peps and Monks. How you been doing this week?
How's it going?
Yeah, not bad, mate. Grand final week for the NRL. We were discussing in the group chat.
Possible.
Yeah.
We'll get to that.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
My money, put the house, the wife and kids on that the NRL Grand Final happens this weekend, and there will be a crowd. I'm not sure the exact capacity just yet, but yeah, looking forward to that. As you mentioned, IPL's back, and the Melbourne Demons 57-year drought. It was a bit of a blowout in the fourth quarter. We got 3 quarters of good footy, and really excited for all the D's fans around the country that have never witnessed one or had to wait 57 years between drinks.
Yeah. Thanks. How's your week been?
Oh yeah, no, good. Obviously with the AFL Grand Final over the weekend and leading into the NRL Grand Final this week, it's been pretty good. Caught up in a fair bit of NFL as well. So yeah, ready to get stuck into it.
So with that, I think we'll kick off and start with Shout a Beer. Bucks, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I'll go first. So I'll keep it quick because we'll talk a little bit more about his fight career later on in the podcast. But I'm going to shout Manny Pacquiao a beer this week. Officially retired this week from professional boxing, and probably shouting him a beer for his newly declared Candidacy. Whoa, I'm starting early here, aren't I?
You only
candidacy.
Shout yourself, mate.
I might need to. Might need a few beers to loosen the lips. He's going into the 2022 Philippine presidential election. I'll leave it at that. Already holds office in the Philippines as a senator, but yeah, heading for the top job next year.
He'll win.
Yeah. Do you know much about the current president, Duterte? He's essentially the bloke that said if you suspect someone is dealing drugs in your neighbourhood, go put a bullet in them. And it's been some pretty wild things over there in the Philippines. So Wouldn't surprise me if Big Manny Pacquiao comes through with the presidential win. And I think they drink San Miguel's over there is the big beer. So maybe Manny will treat himself to a few San Miguel's.
Yeah,
possibly.
Pepe, what about you?
Yeah, I'm going to bring it back local. I'll shout Blake Taff a beer. He probably shouldn't drink it in the next few days, but pending regardless of what happens Sunday night, I'm sure he can have it. He is, of course, a South Sydney fill-in fullback after Latrell got suspended a few weeks ago against the Roosters. Pretty much the rugby league world had come to the conclusion that South could not win this without Latrell. There was big question marks around South as it was. Throughout the season, they got dusted by the Melbourne Storm and by the Penrith Panthers. Lo and behold, without Latrell, that they'll be playing in the grand final Sunday evening. And I think a lot of that has to be credited to Blake Taff, the young bloke here. He came in, he played fullback. There was a lot of conjecture. Would, say, Alex Johnston move to fullback and chuck a young bloke on the wing? They said, no, we're backing Taff in. And he played like 4 games before this, and he's actually played really, really well. And he'll be playing in a grand final on the weekend. I think it will be his 7th NRL game. So enjoy one. If you win or whether you lose on the weekend, Blake Taff definitely deserves a beer.
Yep, definitely.
So Yeah, so that means I need to finish off, and I'm going to shout out a beer to Alexander Volkanovski, the Volk, for defending his title and an excellent fight, and we'll talk about that more when we get to the UFC. But I want to shout him out. Well, probably don't need to shout him a beer with the amount of shoeies, thongies, or jandals, whatever you want to call them. But he also backed up for the Las Vegas versus Dolphins game the next day and had more beers with his belt in the crowd. I think Dan Hooker was there with him. All the New Zealand City gym boys getting around their defense of the title there. So probably doesn't need another beer, but I'll shout one out to you, out to the Vault.
Look, I think one more wouldn't hurt, considering they might have been in triple digits over the weekend after the win. I'm sure one more wouldn't hurt. And how good was it? Obviously, we'll get stuck in and we'll take a deep dive into UFC 266 a bit later in the show. But an absolute war between Volkanovski and Ortega. Really great to watch. And obviously, for us Aussies, the right result. And yeah, very proud of the little bloke from Wollongong.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, boys, I think that means we need to talk about what's coming up on this weekend, the grand final. But let's blaze through some NRL news first before we get to that point. And we should kick off with the winner of the Dally M. Tom Trbojevic proving that half the NRL season's not needed. Winning the Dally M off after playing 15 games of a 24-game season.
Yeah, 35 points he accumulated in 15 games, so averaging over 2 votes, 2 points a game. It makes you wonder if he'd played the full 24, it might have been the best season ever amassed by a rugby league player of all time. We've spoken ad nauseum about him on the Esky. We were saying last week he's so good that he kind of makes you not hate Manly. And he won it clearly. He won it quite clearly from Nathan Cleary with 30 points and Cody Walker on 29. We did say last week that he pretty much had it in the bag. They did the split release of the points, and with the amount of games remaining, we pretty much knew that it was going to Turbo. So congrats to him on an awesome season, one of the best ever assembled in the NRL. One of the funny things that came out from the night was Big Dick Peter V'landys. He was out there and he was doing his best Sean impression. And I've got to say, Sean, this might even be rough on you because this was one of the all-time bungles of someone's name. The West Tigers fella, Josh Alloway, was in there for 1 point. And he literally goes, 1 point, O'Shea Olay. Like as if he was speaking Pig Latin in year 7 to try and convey some kind of message without the teachers knowing what he was talking about. That the camera panned over to Turbo and a few of the blokes that were in attendance. They had a bit of a chuckle. The video's gone a little bit viral here. And, yeah, look, good on you, Peter V'landys, giving us a lot of confidence to continue doing this podcast. If the big dick boss of the NRL can't string a sentence together, we may as well try anyway.
Yeah.
So probably the best thing to come out of the night, given Turbo was already going to win the Dally M.
Yeah, it was a very dry night, but that was the main moment. And you could see it. Like, as soon as he came up, V'landys pauses because he knows, I think he might have been stitched up here. I reckon someone on the teleprompters fucked him. And he's gone, this is not right. I know it's not right. Fuck it. I'm going to say it.
You reckon he got Ron Burgundy, Sean? He's gone 1 vote, O'Shea Olay, go fuck yourself, San Diego, or something like that.
Pretty much.
Jeez, it was hard viewing, and shout out to any of our loyal listeners, Esky Bras, if you will, on the show that have stuck with us and all our name bungles. But check that one out if you haven't seen it. One of the funnier ones getting around ever, I reckon. So good on you, Peter V'landys, and shout out to Josh Alloway, not O'Shea Olay, his Pig Latin brother.
Well, I'll go straight from that into trying not to bush C.S. Oliala's name.
It's not that hard.
Yeah. We should mention Big C. He has retired after 17 years in playing professional rugby league across Roosters, St. Helens and the Raiders. Total of 336 games, played 12 games for New Zealand and 4 for Samoa. Top bloke by all accounts, absolute heart of the team, and for the Raiders is going to be will be a big loss going forward in their forward pack.
Definitely, his body catching up on him. But as you said, Sean, from all accounts, and obviously us being Canberrans, you tend to hear a little bit about it. One of the better blokes getting around in the NRL, very team-focused and very approachable kind of guy. I didn't realise he'd played so many top-level games. 336 games includes his time over in the Super League. I think he had 4 or 5 seasons over there with St Helens. But, yeah, to anyone that's played 300 top flight rugby league games has respect in my books. So good on you, Sia, for an excellent career.
Yep. And that follows up with a career announcement for Blake Ferguson, where it's not a retirement, but he's hasn't been able to catch another NRL deal. But it looks like he potentially could be eyeing a switch to rugby union. Wants to play for the Wallabies. Be a bit of a loss, I'd say, to rugby league, considering he's not the oldest bloke going around at the moment. But he played 249 games for the Sharks, Raiders, and Roosters. Of course, most recently with the Eels. Played 9 games for New South Wales and another 7 for Australia. Had an excellent career in the NRL, but yeah, odd to see that, a winger of his caliber, like he's still playing well, still scoring tries, can't get a Guernsey with any team of the 16, maybe 17 NRL teams in the league.
Yeah, quite an unusual one. We were speculating a little bit a few weeks ago what the go with the Fergie Ferg was going to be. And look, if you can snap up some good money in rugby union at the end of your career, why not do it? Especially wingers. It seems to be something that, the switch is very easy to go play wing in rugby union. When you've got a rugby league wingers background, then that names of Lottie Dakiri and Wendell Saylor, more recently Marika Korobidi come to mind. It's not like, going over there and trying to learn to play scrum half or flanker or something. Essentially, you're doing the same thing, but probably getting less involved than a rugby league winger would. So,
like for Ferguson as well, he's got great size, so he can definitely.
Yeah. And an excellent finisher. So if you look up some of his highlights on YouTube of him flying at the corner post, the modern winger and their ability to finish close to the goal line. Don't worry, Fergalicious is right up there with some of the ways that he's finished. So shout out to him and him wrapping up his NRL career.
Probably playing for the Wallabies in the next 6 months, you'd say.
Yeah, look, we're not obviously big rugby aficionados, but it does seem to be, if you're an established NRL player, then the transition tends to happen pretty quick. So good on him if he gets to become a dual code international. All the best to the Fergie Ferg.
Yeah. So I might throw the next story to you in a second here, Peps, because you're a resident Coke addict. So what's the go here?
That has been absolutely stitched up.
That's a bit rough.
I only bring it up because with the nose of your caliber, I would have sucked up plenty of illegal substances. So
you're saying inadvertently, me, Blake Ferguson, who we've just spoken about, some of the Squidward from SpongeBob SquarePants, a few of our other big nose friends might have accidentally hoovered up a little bit in their time. Look, boys, I'm not sure why this is news, but given the way that, the clickbait and mainstream media works, here's one for you. Mad Monday rolled around and a few NRL boys did cocaine or some other white substance. It hasn't been confirmed just yet. It may have been bacon soda.
Yeah, there's not many white substances would be snorting.
That's right. Reece Walsh, the young fella, he was the rookie of the year. He got busted up at Surfers Paradise. I think the dumb thing with him is the cops told him to go home, and that could have been his night. He went back to Surfers, and that's when he got done with the drugs on him. He'll learn his lesson there. When you get told to go home, just go home. I've also learned that one out the hard way.
What do you think about the Warriors making him front up the next day to do the press conference with the coach and to admit his mistake?
Yeah, look, next day is pretty full on. He's a young bloke.
It was pretty. It might have been 48 hours.
I think it might have been Monday, but it was pretty quick turnaround. The kid's 18. Like, look, we're not condoning drug use here, but it's not like it was a trafficable amount. Look, Rez will learn his lesson. If you want to stay out of the papers and, not have three, beer drinking morons talk about you here on a podcast, which barely anyone listens to, just go home. When the coppers say go home, just go home. The other story being the hectic cheese and Munster. I'm pretty sure everyone kind of knew that these boys didn't mind a little bit of a sesh outside of this leaking
Yes.
to mainstream media. And on their Mad Monday, we'll get into it in a second. Obviously, Melbourne going down to Penrith in a game they were fancied to win. The boys letting the hair down a little bit, and also caught ingesting some kind of white substance. But you know who the real enemies here, and I'm sure Nadia Bartel will have my back when I bring this one up, is put away the fucking phones, boys. Back in the 1980s, you don't reckon those boys got up to any mischief? I'm not condoning it. I'm just saying there wasn't a camera on every fucking person's hip. And the boys, I reckon a lot got swept under the rug in those days. So lesson learned might be put the phone away. And Nadia Bartel, she can go have a meeting with the Cheese and Munster, and they can talk about their tactics for next year's Mad Monday.
Well, they do join like elite company of the last 2 decades. I think Dave Taylor, Greg Bird, Carmichael Hunt, Wendell Saylor. Like, yeah, it's take it as it's a legal substance, but
in Australian society, again, not condoning, but pretty common. And then in the NRL, that little echo chamber within Australian society, pretty fucking common. And look, lots of people say, oh, they're role models for kids. They can't be doing this. Well, these people that say that NRL players need to be role models for kids, as far as I'm concerned, they're the ones that have got rocks for brains. Maybe go read out some Nobel laureates or some poets, some people that have done some philanthropy. Maybe they can be the role models, and not the guys that play a hard physical contact game. Them being the role models for the kids. Anyway,
yes. And especially from the bumhole leagues. Anyway,
that's right.
To finish up this story, I think Munster's looking at 40K fine, 20,000 for the cheese, and I think Walsh is going to get 10. I think there's 2 other boys involved with the Storm. They're going to get 5. I think they kind of worked it out based on how much money they were making, because at one point I heard that Cheese and Munster were both getting 50K, and I was like, well, for the Cheese, that's probably an 1/8, 1/5 maybe of his contract, because I don't think he's on huge money. So that's a huge hit, but I think they've scaled it a little bit. So 20K is nothing to sneeze at, but it's still funny in its own right.
But, and going back to the Dragons with their the party at Vorney's, that's the way they did it. They did it tapered to match or be a percentage, I should say, of your salary. And I think that's a pretty fair way to go about it. But the boys will learn from their lessons. I'm sure. Look, you want to stay out of the media, do the right thing, and don't do drugs for one. But if you are going to go that way, just don't fucking get the camera phones out, boys.
An expensive dime bag for those boys.
Very expensive bags. Very expensive bags.
Let's talk about some footy then.
Right.
South Manly and Penrith, Melbourne over the weekend. Souths, of course, getting the win 36-16, and Penrith beating Melbourne 10-6. But this Souths game, they kind of got ahead really quickly. They blew them out, and then it was done by halftime. That's why I actually turned it off at halftime. Like, they're done. They're not coming back from here. And went and did some other things.
Me being the rugby league tragic that I am, I ended up watching the whole game. But yeah, you are right. There was 22-zip at the half. Cody Walker had a brace early on. He was really good. We did get the feeling that there was something going on with Adam Reynolds. Came out after the game that he's got some kind of groin strain. But Walker took over a lot of the kicking role there, and he got 2 tries to go along with Alex Johnson and Jackson Paulo. And South just controlled everything here. They controlled the completions. They had more ball. They controlled the territory, and they just choked Manly out of this. And look, we got to eat our words. I think all of us tipped Manly in this, didn't we?
Wanted to back the dark horse. Wanted to back. You said it before. We enjoyed Tommy Turbo so much. We wanted to see him play in the grand final. Souths spoiled that plan, and you can't really look past Souths as a club as well, an overall team and what they've got there. But we did.
again, it's a team of stars will beat a team with a few superstars. You know, I suppose outside of your Tommy Turbo and DCE and Ruben Garrick has been really good. I think South it showed with a more well-rounded side. I think maybe we probably should have thought back to what happened in that Melbourne game in the first week of the finals, and Manly got dismantled. And Wayne Bennett would have been watching that, licking his lips, taking notes, and South executed a really good game plan. So they go through to the GF, and Manly. No videos have surfaced yet of their Mad Monday, but I'm sure the boys, you know, after the start they had, they were, you know, they didn't win any of their first 4 games. After that, no one really expected too much of them to get to where they did. You know, commendable effort.
Yep. Yeah. So if we then flip the script and look at Penrith and Melbourne, of the 3 good games that happened in NRL this season, we've had 3 of them in the last 3 weeks, and they've all been under 20 points, 18 points scored.
Yeah.
Game. And this was another one, 10-6 in this, a low scoring, you know, defensive battle contest the entire time. This is what we want to see, not the 22-0 at halftime. I have to go talk to my missus now, unfortunately.
One, if you're doing that at 9:15 on a Friday night, good luck. I'm not sure how good the conversation will be. And 2, if Big Dick Peter V'landys is after he's finished taking notes on how to pronounce simple names like Josh, maybe he should take some notes on we don't have to tinker with the rules in NRL to try and make it more high scoring for it to be more entertaining. Another low scoring bash 'em up game, which was quite entertaining. I tell you what, though, this was probably the worst that Melbourne played all year, and it came out in the game where they couldn't afford to be slightly off. And
I think the big losing their guys as well really didn't help, like Welsh and Cheese. Both
Welsh Cheese,
Welsh very early.
You know, when you lose guys with 10 minutes to go, 20 minutes to go, it's a different story. I think back in Origin, Welch went down, you know, after 6 minutes or something. It's pretty hard, especially in the modern game when you only get 8 interchanges and you're forced to use 2 of them early. So that didn't bode well for Storm fans. Shout out to Nathan Cleary. That kick to Stephen Crichton very early on was really good. 4th tackle, so had to use some vision. Straight out of dummy half, and that was a really nice try. Did fuck my multi for my punters club. I had first try after 8 minutes, which is normally a pretty good bet in defensive battles like this. But this one was pretty quick into it. And then Big Nelson Asafa Solomona, he went through with a big sort of Superman try. That one went back for obstruction, and Brian To'o, coming back from injury, he busted through to go 10-0 up. Pap got one at the end to make it sort of interesting, but Penrith come through with their goal line defence and shocked everyone. We all tipped Melbourne. Nearly, you know, the general consensus was Melbourne had been the best team all year. They won 19 in a row, broke all kinds of records, but they're not going to the big dance. So Penrith Penrith fans will be pretty happy, at least getting a bit of revenge for last year's grand final. Over the Storm in that one.
Yep. So I think that means we now need to talk about this grand final, and we mentioned it in the intro. The Queensland has got some cocoa at the moment, and I was checking this before with Monks. I think 4 cases yesterday, 6 today, 22 in total. They've got active at the moment. They've reduced crowds from the 100 to 75%. So Monks, what's the difference in that percentage?
Something like 25%.
There we go.
Yeah, good man.
A resident accountant can do simple maths, which is great.
Finally got it. It's been what, like 2-3 months, and
our little boy's all grown up.
So I've had the arithmetics on the back of the toilet door, and been doing addition, subtraction. Got it.
Are you getting into hard stuff like multiplication, or is that's next year? That's when you get into year 3.
Yeah, that's.
So I won't rant too much, boys. Again, 75% to me still feels like a super spreading event compared to 100%, but it's like flogging a dead horse. It seems like they want this to go ahead, by any means necessary. If that means cutting the crowd by 25%, so be it. This game happens Sunday night, mark my words. And I don't think we'll see any changes in the next few days.
The curse. That's all I'm going to say. It's come out of versus me. I'm pretty sure he said the same thing about the Australian Open, and they had to postpone it, and then no crowds for the entire time. So I don't like your track record.
And that's a lot of tape to go back through. So I'm not volunteering for that. What I will, look, I'll volunteer this. If the NRL Grand Final doesn't happen on Sunday with some sort of crowd, I'll do a back-to-back skull next week on the Esky. How does that sound?
Yeah. So I think not helping your chances there, Peps, is the problem with the cases. They're all over the state. They're not just in Brisbane, which potentially will force the Queensland, your best mate, the Premier, very much.
Palaszczuk.
Yeah, Palaszczuk very much likes to.
Outstanding woman. No kind of self-interest in running Origin games or grand finals whatsoever.
Yeah. Lockdown though. The problem is their lockdown. Is it imminent or not? Will they do the lockdown at 12 o'clock on Sunday night like we think they probably will, so they get this game in? But if they do go lockdown, it would mean no crowds for the grand final. And the NRL said, well, we may not play the game if we got no crowds. Maybe we postpone it a week, see where we're at. If they're going to do that, Coco, we've seen with the AL2 states and where we are, that it doesn't disappear in a week. So I don't know what their chances are. The backup was Townsville, and then they had the hostie that was up there that had COVID as well. So that essentially ruled out that as their backup for the grand final. So I'm not as optimistic as Peps is in this case. I think the game will go ahead, but I'm not sure what kind of spectacle it'll be. Let's see what happens.
It'll be a great spectacle, and I imagine someone by the name of Danny Widler might have been coming up with these ridiculous headlines this week. Shout out to Danny, managed to wheedle his way into a journalism career for the last 15 years by writing tripe like this.
He's basically the Adam Scheffler of rugby league, mate. Yeah.
No. Shefty is articulate and all over it, and doesn't go for a cheap headline like this. Danny Widler, shout out to him, brings us all the best news via Channel 9 and his shit haircut and his shit headlines. But no, Schefter and Widler should be uttered in the same sentence.
I think Danny's problem is he covers the Bombhole League instead of the NFL. So
he has to make news up.
let's talk about this.
Going for him, his hair is not as greasy as Schefter's. Schefter's got him covered in the grease department, I think.
Let's talk about the footy game. Panthers taking on Souths. We all tipped the opposite sides last week, gave them the curse. Penrith looking for redemption for their last year's loss, of course. We talked about in the Storm. We'll get to that in a minute. Last won the comp in 2003. Souths, on the other hand, looking, they have choked in the prelims in the past. They've finally got rid of that tag, trying to send off Reynolds and Wayne Bennett, potentially Benji Marshall as well, depending on what happens with him. For in this grand final, they last won in 2014. What's your early impressions, lads? What are your early thoughts?
I'll have a crack here, boys. You're seeing two different styles of play, aren't you? South that love to go on the attack. They love to spread it early. They score points. And Penrith, who are just defensively sound, we've seen them in the last two games, nut out really tough, wars in low-scoring games and low-scoring wins against Melbourne and Parramatta. So two quite different styles. There was a bit of mind games being started by Wayne Bennett. What did we see here, lads? I think I missed a bit of this.
Yeah, well, you gotta remember, and I wanted to bring this up because I think I said that Wayne was the difference in their Souths versus Penrith game when they played 3 weeks ago, I think, from memory. The first round of the finals. Which forced Penrith to go the long way and have to go through Melbourne to make it.
Mm-hmm.
But I said, Wayne was the difference. They're talking about the blocking plays and how Penrith through this, trying to get the refs on side. He's already started the mind games talking about, well, their trainer's always on the field. He was on the field for 10 or 13 stoppages or some shit like that. Already trying to push that agenda and reignite his little bit of feud with Ivan Cleary. It's great Bennett tactic where he makes the focus especially on him and less on the team. So they're all talking about Wayne and not about what Souths are doing. And they're all talking about the shit I just mentioned. And then they have to go to Ivan and ask questions. That makes Ivan annoyed and pissed off. And then he starts getting in his head, living rent-free. And we saw it where Souths just were different. They played a better game plan than Penrith. Penrith were unprepared. That's what I'm going to say. I don't think they had the right game plan going into that game, and they ended up losing in a close battle. So, yeah. Is Wayne going to be the difference in the grand final? Not sure. He is the GOAT. Yeah, I think we kind of talked about in the past. To take it, I think it's his 10th grand final now that he's taken the club to. Yeah, unbelievable. He's got the record that speaks for itself. The one thing, I think I said it to James, and I'll flick to you in a second, Marks, for your thoughts. I said it to James earlier. My thoughts, and I said it last year, I thought Penrith were going to choke and they were going to get smashed by Storm in the grand final. And for 60 minutes of that was the case before Penrith roared back in and made the game closer, but they still got pumped. My thoughts on that was I thought they needed to lose that grand final so then when they came back this year, they'd win it because they needed to go through that experience to learn that, we need to beat, this is how we need to learn to beat Melbourne. This is how they play in this massive game like this. Cleary needs to learn how to win big football games. He did that through Origin. So I think they're in prime position. My concern, though, and I think I still tipped them, my concern, though, is did they play that game last week? Have they played their grand final and with Wayne and the other stuff in it? Are they going to just miss it? And, I don't want to say they're going to choke again, but they're going to come up with a red-hot Souths team and Souths, I think this game's probably finish 12-6. That's where I think this game will finish.
The unders?
Yeah, definitely unders. 18 points. I think it'll be close, hard-fought battle. And I'm going to give a slight edge to Souths, though I picked Penrith.
I think
Monks, your thoughts?
Yeah, same. I think, going back to the mind games, I think during the week, Cleary said that if Bennett keeps on talking about all of this stuff with the trainers and with the blocking and all that sort of stuff, then Ivan's of the opinion that he's in Bennett's head now. Like Bennett's getting frustrated about how Panthers are playing the game and all that sort of stuff. So whether that was just some sort of face for the public, that Cleary's trying to be confident, hard to say. Obviously, like we talked about a second ago, different styles of footy. South very attacking, Penrith's more defensive. I think for me, I've gone Panthers. I think they went through a war last week, so how they recover with their week leading into the grand final will be huge. For South, for me, yes, they beat Manly, but then they beat Manly, like we're saying, like a team of stars versus a team of a couple of players. So I don't know how much confidence you can put into that. Not taking anything away from Manly, they had a great season to get to where they were. But yeah, I think Panthers should have the edge. I think, like you're saying, the games they've played this season, the loss last year has just probably just given them the experience they need, and hopefully understanding from playing the Souths earlier on in the season, they know what they need to do.
Yep. Yeah, I could definitely see that sentiment. Some final notes in this. Pango Jr. did rule himself out with a knee injury. Potentially he could have been right for the game and played, but he might have been only 80%. So he did start to stand himself down so that a young fella that had been in the system, been in Penrith for a very long time, could actually get a go in this game. So, that's great for Pango to do that.
Yeah, don't want to brush over that. Obviously, TPJ coming across from Brisbane, he's off the Dogs next year, and he's helped them get to a grand final. But it does seem like this knee was kind of 50-50, and it seems like he said, no, look, rather than trying to put all your effort in getting me right, let's give the cap to Spencer Linau, who's been in the system for a long time. So yeah, didn't want to brush over that. Shout out to Pangai Jr. And I think he'll still get ringed or doesn't he from playing with the side, but won't be in the 17 on the weekend.
Yep. And the final notes was Dylan Edwards has been in a mood boot all week, but he looks like he'll be fine to play. And of course, Adam Reynolds, as mentioned, has groin tenderness, but also expected to play. Monks, to finish us off on this, do you have some odds?
Oh, yes, I do. So Penrith are ahead in the head-to-head. Their favourites are $1.68. Rabbitohs are sitting out at $2.25. We have got a line of 3.5, so very close game, and over-unders is 37.
Yeah, quite low there, isn't it? So the bookies are thinking the same way we are. Grand finals tend to be a little bit lower scoring. I don't know if we'll be touching that. I don't know if I'll be betting on the results of this. I might be a little bit more of an anytime try scorer kind of man in this one. And I did go Penrith. So that sounds like a good old On The Esky curse.
South by 40.
Watch South go out and win this comfortably.
Yeah, that's it.
And with that, that'll end the NRL chat for this week, and which means we should probably talk about the other grand final that happened since the last podcast, and that was the AFL Grand Final. Melbourne did end their 57-year drought. As mentioned, big congrats to the D's and D's fans. Boys, what did you think of this match and how it went down?
Yeah, firstly, I just wanted to extend my commiserations to Joseph Jim McGrath. If you're listening, big time Dogs fan, contributor to the Esky. He had to endure a Melbourne Storm loss. He recovered. He's after that game, obviously going straight into the AFL Grand Final. He said, "Okay, this is the big one for me. Let's recuperate." Halftime, he was pretty up and about, and then didn't really hear too much after about three-quarter time. So the poor bloke had to watch the Dogs lose, and then. Big United fan, they got done by Villa. I'll tell you what, for the neutral viewers, this game had it all until the end of the third quarter. It was absolutely back and forth. The first quarter just belonged to Melbourne. The second quarter belonged to the Dogs. I think, what was it, a 8-point lead at the half. The game was really set up, and we saw that enticing battle of the two best midfields going at it. In your Petrarcas and your Olivers and your Gawn up against your English and McRae and Bontempelli. That midfield battle was unreal. Caleb Daniel got a bunch of footy for the Dogs early on. I think he had 26 at half time, something like that, from the little half back from the Dogs. And then the third quarter continued that even Stevens kind of back and forth.
I think it was right at the midpoint of the third quarter.
Further back than that, I think maybe with about 5-8 minutes to go in that third quarter, and Melbourne went bang, 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 and got a 3-goal lead going into three-quarter time.
My thoughts were, it looked like the Bulldogs were dominating general play. Like they were controlling a bit more than Melbourne did, but as soon as the Dogs scored, the counter-attack out of the clearances for Melbourne, they'd get it straight back. And then, like you said, they got it straight back, and then they got another one and another one straight after it, and they hit. And then they just got on a roll where they were just smoking them out of the middle. And then, the Dogs couldn't come back from that, and they scored 100 points in the second half.
Unbelievable.
So I think the Bulldogs, what was it, like 7? Oh, no, they were 1-1 with it. There was,
like you said, it was like ruck tap, clearance, mark inside 50, goal, and just repeat throughout the whole fourth quarter and the back end of the third. It was like watching two different games, quite frankly. Would have been really hard viewing for poor Dogs fans. At least for the neutral viewer, you kind of go, oh, well, they had 2016. They'd broken their drought a few years ago. They've been a really good side over the last few years under Bevo, and they're not going away anywhere. They've still got a really good list. For me, I think it was two. You tipped the Dogs, was it, Sean? And me and Muntz went Melbourne. Look, at halftime, it was anyone's game. For a fan of footy that wasn't really invested in either side, very happy to see a team break a drought of 57 years. We spoke about it last week with, granddads and grandmas around the country that, might have seen a win as a young pup, and then for them to be able to experience that with their family, the sons and daughters, the grandchildren that had never seen them win a flag, that would have been pretty special. I imagine there would have been a few tears and a few beers around the country amongst the D's fans. Let's talk about the players. Christian Petrarca won the Norm Smith. He had 39 possessions and 2 goals. He was unbelievable.
So I wanted to mention it there as well, because you said it as well. The clearances where they'd get the tap and then they'd get the ball straight away from that clearance and put it inside the 50. Man enabling a lot of those was Petrarca. He'd be getting those. He was all about it, clearing it out of the centre of the end and pushing it straight inside the 50 to set up quick goals. Like, it was very impressive.
Yeah, and very deserving of that Norm Smith, involved in everything in the second half. Bailey Fritsch got a lot of it up front. He had 6 goals in a grand final. Not too many people have done that. So shout out to the young, Macca's best mate, essentially, Melbourne, privately educated. I think his words were, "Daddy has money," kind of look about him. But I tell you what, money is him taking a mark inside 50 and kicking a goal. Can't take anything away from him. He's been very good. And a shout out to Bontempelli and Treloar, who were both very good in a losing side. Treloar, it was well documented at the start of the year, the whole, the farce that happened essentially at Collingwood and him being unwanted and all kinds of media attention. For him to go over to the Dogs and have immediate impact and show what kind of quality player he was in a grand final, albeit in a losing side, it was good to see. Yeah,
well, that second quarter where they were down significantly to start the second quarter, and he two goals from him really turned them around to give him the juice, and then Bont come in and they really kind of pushed that, and they got the lead at the halftime. You thought they were going to carry it on. They're playing really well in that third quarter, and then I don't know, the switch went on for the D's and they just killed him.
I think as well, someone that we haven't mentioned is Max Gawn, the Melbourne captain. If you're giving Petrarca first use of it or giving Oliver first use of it, a lot of that came down to the stalwart, the club captain, Big Maxi, getting the taps. Obviously, me as a park footy ruckman, big fan of Maxi on and off the field, and he was well involved in getting them the win. And from what I can tell, quite involved in the post-win celebrations. A few videos have come out. Unlike the NRL, in which they tend to incriminate themselves, there was just them on a dance floor consuming some legal substances and having a good time, partying as you would if you'd won a first flag in 57 years.
Any final thoughts on the AFL Grand Final? Overall, great season, competitive. It was great to see. The D's they didn't come from nowhere, but they came from and weren't very much expected to win a grand final this year. So,
no, not expected to. But everyone knew that the list was there. Obviously, made the finals a few years back, and then it had kind of sort of dropped off. We're trending in the right direction, and they like we said last week, them and the Western Bulldogs, despite the fact that the Dogs finished 5th. They were the 2 best teams throughout this year and a deserving grand final. A little bit of a shame, I guess, for the neutral viewer in the fact that it did blow out in the 4th quarter. But, yeah, look, a great AFL season, and looking forward to the AFL draft, which will be in about 6 weeks. I think we'll keep an eye on that. There'll be some father-son implications there. But, yeah, I think me and Monks, we played golf quite early Sunday morning, and both of us rocked up and was sort of humming, it's a grand old flag, it's a flag. It was stuck in my head going to sleep. Yeah. Just watching it, and some nice videos coming through of the boys, still in their kit, very very late on in the evening. On the furfies, a few of the boys smoking some cigars and getting the ski goggles out like an NBA team would, and celebrating a World Cup. So congratulations to the Melbourne Demons, and congratulations to the long-suffering Demons fans.
That's it. I also want to shout out Neil Danaher as well. Saw a couple of photos of him floating around the socials after the game. So yeah, I'm sure he would have been enjoying it as well.
Big time.
It would have meant so much to him, so much, so invested in that club. Well publicised his struggle, his battle with motor neuron disease. I think he's gone past 8 years since his diagnosis, and I'm pretty sure the life expectancy for that disease is about 18 months. So massive win for Neil. The boys get around him. He's an inspiration. I encourage anyone that hasn't read his book to check it out. Really good reading there. So congratulations to Neil. Congratulations to Max Gawn, Petrarca, to Simon Goodwin and the Melbourne Demons. Well done, boys.
So we need to move on and let's talk about some cricket. And there's been a lot of cricket, or most of it, of course. IPL cricket.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps do you want to run us through the 10 games that have happened in the last week since our last podcast?
I'll take a deep breath, boys. They're doing a lot of double headers. They're trying to get through this schedule quite quickly. So rather than going, taking an in-depth look at each game, we'll just go through the results quite quickly, highlight any players that did well. So going back to our last pod, match 34, we had the Knight Riders take on the Mumbai Indians. They came away with a win there. Sunil Narine, man of the match. He actually was man of the match in 2 of the games over the last week. Match 35 saw the top of the table Chennai Super Kings defeat Royal Challengers Bangalore. Virat Kohli had 53 there, and Devdutt Padikkal 70. Dwayne Bravo 3 for 24 and a man of the match there. Match 36, we saw the Delhi Capitals, who we will be speaking to on Saturday. They had us in the first iteration of the IPL. So check that out if you want to see us talking to the Delhi Capitals Saturday night. They got the win over the Rajasthan Royals. Shreyas Iyer 43 and a man of the match in that one. Match 37 saw Monkeys Punjab Kings get a win against the Sunrisers Hyderabad. Jason Holder, man of the match in a low-scoring, bit of a snooze fest game in that one. The 38th match saw the Chennai Super Kings get another win against Kolkata Knight Riders. Ravi Jadeja, the man they call Jadu, man of the match in that one. Match 39, Royal Challengers Bangalore got a win against Mumbai Indians. Kohli got 50 again, and our boy Glenn Maxwell 56 and a man of the match in that one. Match 40 saw Sunrisers Hyderabad get a win. They're only their second win of the IPL season against the Rajasthan Royals, the boys in pink. Dave Warner, a lot of noise around him, not selected again, and Sunrisers winning. So can't imagine that Warner gets another bat for Sunrisers Hyderabad. Jason Roy, 60 and a man of the match in that one. Sanju Samson, 82 in a losing side for the Rajasthan Royals. And then on the home stretch, Kolkata Knight Riders had a win against our Delhi Capitals. Good to see Steve Smith out there, 39 opening for Delhi, but Sunil Narine, that man that I mentioned before, 2 for 18 and a man of the match. Match 42, Mumbai Indians defeated Punjab Kings. Kieran Pollard, the big man, 2 for 8 with the ball and a quick 5-15, getting the win there for the Indians. And match 43, finally, Royal Challengers Bangalore defeating Rajasthan Royals. Glenn Maxwell in the runs again, 50 not out, and Yuzvendra Chahal 2 for 18. Thanks for sticking with us, boys. That was a lot to get through and a lot to get through quickly. I think the more interesting thing to talk about is the table. Monks, if you wouldn't mind bringing that up. Sunrisers Hyderabad, they've only had 2 wins, I believe.
Yeah, 4 points.
Yeah. So it's the top 4 that's kind of starting to take shape now. We've got Chennai Super Kings and Delhi Capitals up there. They're all but assured of playing finals.
Yep.
Royal Challengers Bangalore are in 3rd. Monks, have you got the table there and the points?
Yeah.
Sorry, Monks, sorry, I jumped in.
Yeah, no, you're right. Sorry. So at the top of the table, both on 16 points, and then Bangalore is sitting at 14. Behind them at 4th and 5th, we've got the Knight Riders and Mumbai Indians both sitting at 10. And after that, we've got the Punjab Kings at 8, and then Rajasthan Royals at 8 as well, 6th and 7th. And yeah, as you mentioned, Hyderabad is sitting down there at 4th, with 4 points, sorry.
Yeah, and I think each club needs to play 5 more matches.
I think a little bit less. So they play 14 total, and most have played 10 or 11. So 3 or 4, I think they're.
Oh, sorry. Let me count. Yeah, 3. I've got Delhi Capitals with 3 more matches.
Yeah, and I think some have got 4 in hand. So in summation, we've got the top 2. I think the Super Kings and the Capitals will finish 1 and 2. The order
top 4 at least. They can't drop out of there.
Yeah, that's right. They'll be playing finals. Yep. Royal Challengers Bangalore should be playing finals. They're 4 points ahead of 4th place. And then we've got a tight contest for 4th place between the Knight Riders, the Mumbai Indians, the Punjab Kings, and the Rajasthan Royals. And it's sayonara to David Warner's Sunrisers Hyderabad.
And the Mumbai Indians, I think, are an interesting one with their squad and where they've positioned themselves in the past finals wise. So interesting to see. And they haven't great on form. I think the Knight Riders have probably had the best form. They've won 3 of their last 5.
And
4, honestly.
Yeah, since our last pod, getting a few wins there for the men in purple, the Knight Riders, off the back of some really good bowling from Sunil Narine. So getting down to the business end now, every game counts, obviously in the IPL, but when you get to this stage, that they tend to count a little bit more, and a really interesting, time for viewing for us. We were a little bit worried about the time that the games would be played now that they're in the Emirates. The time zones compared to over here in Australia tends to be a little bit more favourable to us when they're in India, but there have been a lot of these double headers. So the early games tend to be about an 8 p.m. start over here. So if anyone wants to catch a bit of IPL cricket watching Down Under, there's not too much other cricket going on at the moment. Get around the IPL, the early games and the double headers. They start around about 8 o'clock.
Yes. Well, you mentioned other cricket games going on, and the only other games happening for the Australians is the Shield. The Shield is meant to have kicked off. The Queensland versus Tasmania game was postponed because it was meant to be in Brisbane, and Brisbane had cases. So Tassie team were worried they'd get stuck in hotel quarantine. But I think they're going to sort that out and potentially move it and move the guys. But we did end up getting a Shield game, luckily enough. That was between. Who was it between?
WA and SA.
So, and that was in Adelaide.
In Adelaide there. So thank God, that we got a Shield game. We've seen very, very little red ball cricket for Aussie fans with the Ashes just around the corner. The last time that the Australian Test team played was the Gabba. That was the infamous loss. Losing of the fortress, the Gabatoir, if you will, when we saw Washington Sundar out there spanking us around. So that's the last time that we played Test cricket with the Ashes. Hopefully kicking off in less than 2 months. So really interesting matchups. These Sheffield Shield games is a chance for some of these Australian hopefuls to put their hand up and show the selectors that they're worthy of being included in this first game of the Ashes. And all the hopefuls scored runs in terms of the bats. Sean Marsh had 118. Don't count him out. He's older, but he's proven. And with the fitness of Will Pucovski and Tim Payne in question, wouldn't be surprised if Sean Marsh gets a nod in this side. Cam Green, put his name in there. He'll be playing. Unbelievable summer last year. He's been focusing on his red ball cricket. He had 106. Hilton Cartwright played for Australia a few years ago. I probably don't see him making this Ashes squad, but definitely putting his hand up with 121 not in this game. And Travis Head, the South Australian captain, had 163. Expect him to be in that Ashes.
He was dropped late, wasn't he? He didn't play that last game against India.
Yeah, I think he did get dropped. He did get dropped in the last one against India. He will be in the squad 100%. Whether or not he's in the first Test side, that probably depends on these next few Shield games. And I can't imagine 163 in his first outing has done him any harm in getting selected there. Just a quick note, we don't talk about women's cricket too much on the Esky here, but a test match is being played. It's just kicked off between the Aussie women and the Indian women. We might have a quick look back at that next week.
Yep. And that's cricket, which means the NFL hour. We're going to get stuck into NFL games, but we probably should mention some key points from week 3. I think the big one was Justin Tucker's 66-yard record field goal off the crossbar to kill all the Lions' hopes and dreams in this one, to get the Ravens really out of a bind in a game that the Lions played really well in and the Ravens not so much. But Justin Tucker, elite leg. I think he's kicked 40 field goals consecutive in fourth quarter game in the fourth quarter. Like elite as a kicker in the NFL.
We like to talk about GOATs on the Esky, and this bloke is quickly putting his hand up to become one of the greatest kickers of all time. Watching this, you kind of thought, oh, geez, this is a bit of a Hail Mary, 66 yards. I think the old record was 64, so it was two yards that beat it. And unbelievable circumstances with it hitting the crossbar and then dribbling over. And it was like Ralph Wiggum. You can pinpoint the exact time that his heart breaks for the Lions fans. Who'd want to be a Lions fan, to be honest?
Well, I think back on socials, or I saw a video of a Lions fan before he was lining up for the kick. The Lions fan was going, "Yep, this is going to be an NFL record right here. Let's watch Justin Tucker make this field goal." As a Lion fan, and then he kicks it and he sees it go, it's over, and he's just got hand in head. He's just like, "Come on."
Yeah, it was actually really interesting because I think the commentary on that game as well said that Justin Tucker just missed a 65-yarder in practice before the match. So he did a little crow hop in his run up just to give him that little extra oomph. So when he kicked it, that he could get the legs on it, and it obviously worked. He got him the yard he needed, landed on the crossbar to then get it over and win this match for them. It was also interesting during the week of games as well that Matt Prater tried a 68-yard field goal for the record. Unfortunately for him, that was returned for a record length of 109 yards for a touchdown for the Cardinals, and not for his team. Oh, for the Jags, and not for his team.
He kicking for the Cardinals. I didn't realise that it was 68 yard of that one. I'd watched the vision a fair bit, and quite a bright spark for an otherwise lackluster performance from the Jaguars. But yeah, 68-yarder. The boys, they're trying. They're trying.
It was right on halftime. Like it's either tuck a knee there or try a field goal. In this case, it didn't work out for the Cardinals and the Jags. Scored a record length touchdown. The Bolts did upset the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Bengals did upset the Steelers, and some excellent games during the week. And then of course there was the cracker between the Pack and the 49ers on Sunday Night Football.
Pretty happy to finish over here in that one. Class back for my university degree. So unfortunately was not stuck in my isolation where it's so horrible. I've got to have a football on a 65-inch TV in the background. I actually had to be paying attention, and I had to watch the replay of this. But yeah, unbelievable scenes there. You can't give Rodgers the ball back with 37 seconds and no timeouts, it seems.
Yeah. Anything that's over 30 second plus for any of those elite quarterbacks that we've talked about in the past, it's money. It's in the bank. They're coming back and they're going to put it in a spot. And it helps if you got a Kiki and Crosby as well that can convert when you need to.
Did you see when Rodgers spiked the ball and they got it within without the game clock expiring, and he did a big let's go. He was that confident in Mason Crosby coming out and kicking the field goal that he was pumped up just to spike the ball.
Yeah. And for all those haters that thought he wasn't invested in Green Bay football this year, he's definitely invested.
He cares about his teammates. He cares about winning. That's for sure.
Yeah, he just doesn't care about the front office.
That's right. Our good mate, Gutekunst.
So there's a few games in overtime as well. As I think it's in their contract for the Raiders, every home game for them has to go to overtime. So they went to overtime against the Finns, and another excellent game. But with that, let's talk about upcoming. Let's preview round 4. Thursday night football tomorrow for us is Jacksonville taking on Cincinnati, the battle of the number 1 picks, as you will. Football Jesus taking on Joe Burrow. What do you boys think of this? Jags offense, not the worst. They turned the ball over. Trevor's definitely turned the ball over. I think he's 2 and Wilson's 1 at the moment for intercepts for quarterbacks. You might have to double check that fact on me, but I don't think they've been doing overly good. The defense is pretty ordinary. Bengals, on the other hand, they look like they've got a pretty good offensive going over there. And the defense is doing just enough to keep them in games as well. Only allowing 48 points and got 10 sacks so far with 4 takeaways. That always helps. It does help when you take on Bambi at quarterback in Ben Roethlisberger. I'm not sure if you saw him fall over with no one within 10 yards of trying to throw a pass, but
did see that. Poor Big Ben. He's won 2 Super Bowls, but he's just at that stage of his career where it's kind of, it's a twilight zone. Let's be honest. And I think he probably plays out this year. Mason Rudolph hasn't shown too much. If they drafted a quarterback, it might be a completely different story there in the Steel City. Alas, we do need to give our thoughts on Thursday night football. I was thinking, boys, it was kind of like last week with Carolina and Houston. Do I really care that much? And you know what? I do. Since Cincinnati are 2-1, they're surprising a few teams. A really good opportunity to go 3-1, which no one would have saw that coming. And you've got Trevor Lawrence, a bloke that's not used to losing ever, and now he's lost 3 games in a row. Can he reduce these turnovers? I think if they don't turn the ball over, the offense isn't that bad. Their offense isn't that bad. It is in Cincinnati, and for mine, I've got to go the Bengals here. I think that's a big advantage. And this connection between Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, I think they've got 4 touchdown catches for Chase already. He had 2 last week against Pittsburgh. Good to see the former LSU teammates hooking up there. I think the Bengals win this one.
Yeah. To echo your sentiments there, Trevor Lawrence and Joe Burrow, if they continue their form and the way they're progressing, you could be talking about, is this Aaron Rodgers, the first of the Aaron Rodgers versus Tom Brady battle, or Peyton Manning?
Yeah.
Exactly. Is this their first in a long series of epic battles? So for that reason, I think it's worth tuning in and watching. But like you, I've also picked Cincinnati. I just don't think they've progressed as a team overall from where they were as a cellar dwellers to now that they're improving in that division. Steelers probably the worst team in that division, unfortunately for them.
Yeah, and who saw that coming, really? I think everyone...
Who saw the Chiefs being the worst team in the AFC West? But anyway.
True. It's early days. It's
early days. That's my point. But I've picked Cincinnati, Marks.
Yeah. So I think it'll be a good game for Thursday night footy. It's not going to be a blowout where one team's obviously going to be absolutely just smash the other one. I think both teams are still sort of in that rebuild phase, more so Jacksonville than the Bengals. So I think it'd be a good game of footy. I have tipped the Bengals as well. They are favourites at $1.28 at the moment, with the Jaguars sitting out at $3.72. As usual, we have a line of 7.5 and total match points of 46.5.
You might not even worry about the lines anymore, Mark. They're going to be 7 or around that.
No, they mix them up a little bit this week.
It tends to be 3.5, 7.5, 10.5, 14.5. There's a common theme.
Yes. Yeah.
That's it. It's always a touchdown and a field goal or something like that in between.
The total match points, I think it's where it's at. So the next game to kick off early Sunday games, we've got the Washington football team taking on Atlanta Falcons, 1-2 and 1-2. Washington football team did get belted by the Bills in the last game, and the Falcons did get off their donut winning against the Giants, who also lost to the football team the week before. So what are your thoughts on here? What do you think Washington's defense has disappeared? They've allowed 92 points, or do you think it's maybe their offense is putting them into situations that aren't helping their defense? It'd be interesting to see what their time of possession is overall, whether they're playing a lot of football or are they just getting beat?
I think their defense has to be called out. One of the better defenses in the NFL last year, and we kind of expected them to go forward this year. We only thought Chase Young was going to get better. That pass rush was only going to get better. And through 3 games, again, early stages, but they're giving up 30 points a game. And it was meant to be the focal point of this team. They've played some good teams as well, like outside of the Giants. Like the Bills are pretty good.
But I wonder if it's their secondary. Their front four is elite, like their front four. But then, say Ronald Darby, who was probably their best corner last year, is now playing for Denver. So he's moved over. So whether they didn't replace enough in the secondary, and maybe that's where the weakness is. They know if we get this ball out quickly, someone's going to be open, and we don't have to worry about that pass rush, which is the opposite of what you want.
For sure. What about on the fair? Oh, you got something there, Max?
Yeah, I think it's just a little bit of averages over both the passing and rushing. So they've given up second most yards, only just behind Seattle there. So yeah, it's probably not. That probably highlights the fact that it's probably not so much the offense putting them in poor position. They're probably just a little bit leaky on the defense, both passing and rushing.
So it sounds to me more like they can't get off the field on third down. Like their drives are being sustained in this long drives of lots of yards.
Well, that's 100% true. I was listening to a podcast this week. They allow on third down 60% conversions through 3 weeks, which is worst in the NFL by a margin. And if that was to continue throughout the season, again, a big if, that would be the worst conversion on third down ever in the NFL.
Yeah, and well, as you know, third down's where you make your money.
Exactly.
And if you can't get the offense off the field, where you're not going to win many games. So it's a bit dire straits for the football team. But luckily, they run into Atlanta, who are just bad, if not worse, than what they are. They did win their game against the Giants with a field goal. Cordell Patterson is a thing, as I mentioned. Pep's probably the best running back on that team.
I'm still going to fight it. He's been very good at catching the ball out of the backfield. I've got Mike Davis in my fantasy team. Did you pick up Cordell in our fantasy? Or that's you, Max?
I did, yep.
I was looking at it this week. I was like, oh, someone should probably pick him up. And he'd done it already a week and a half ago or something like that. I was like, oh, well, there you go.
The whole Cordell Patterson thing.
I mean, look, to be honest,
very unusual.
I did need another receiver on my team, so I had to pick up Patterson.
Yeah. Plus, he gets running back touches as well. So he's the classic kind of hybrid.
A man who has been a kick and punt return specialist in the NFL for just about 10 years, quite big for a kick and punt returner, and kind of used as a gadget kind of guy, wide receiver reverses, a few catches here and there. And they're trying to turn the bloke into a legitimate running back. And through 3 weeks, it's kind of paid dividends.
Yeah, well, I think they worked out you got to get him in space. If they're going to double team Ridley and then try to either put a man or double team Pitts as well, send them out a bit deeper on routes, and then you put Patterson in an underneath kind of area where he's all alone or he's one-on-one with a linebacker, and you take that matchup every day. That's where he excels in space. So put him in space and see what he can do, and it seems to be working for them.
And that's a great point that you make there, Sean, because Pitts has been relatively quiet and Calvin Ridley has been relatively quiet. So, obviously the secondary gravitating towards these guys, and that's opening up that underneath for Cordell. Be interesting to see if that continues throughout the season. In this game, we don't want to dwell on it too long, I don't think, boys.
Yeah, we talked about it enough.
What do we reckon? I've gone Atlanta. I think I'm not seeing too much out of Washington. They're at home. Matty Ryan's an experienced guy. We are talking about a side that has been to a Super Bowl. I think Atlanta get the biggies here.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I went Washington. I picked the football team. I just think overall their defense is better. The Falcons' defense is so. They've got better. They've got more talent, I reckon, on their roster than the Falcons do. But like you say, it's probably going to be a close, hard-fought battle in this one. But I give them the slight edge to the Washington football team. Marks, tips and odds?
Yeah. No real confidence in this one. I have gone Washington as well. I think you make a good point. Perhaps the Falcons at home might actually probably give them a little bit of advantage. That being said, the football team is favourite at $1.86 at the moment. Atlanta is out at $1.95, so still very close. We're going to skip the line, and we've got total match points of 47.5.
I wouldn't touch that.
Wouldn't be betting, and probably not that interested, really. Speaking of, Detroit and Chicago here. Detroit fans, we spoke about it before, absolutely heartbroken by Justin Tucker and his record-breaking field goal. Although something that I wanted to highlight is they're 0-3, but they haven't been that bad considering that they're 0-3. They've played the 49ers, the Packers, and the Ravens, all good sides. They had that big comeback against the 49ers. They started well against the Packers, and essentially they were robbed on the weekend against the Ravens. Did you guys see the delay or the lack of call on the delay of game? There should have been a delay of game call. If you look at the play clock, the just before the Justin Tucker record field goal, the play clock actually expired. It should have been a 71-yard field goal attempt.
Yeah, and if you actually watch a lot of the games, you'd be surprised that there's a lot of zeros. Like they do hit the delay game, and usually they give them a second to then get it off, like a second or two. Like they give them a little leeway on the play clock. Yeah, and especially I've been watching, of course, a lot of Denver football, and they've been, Teddy Two Gloves has been getting away with a lot of hitting zeros, and then he gets it off a second after. They seem to allow that across the league to allow that through. So I think that's why they allowed it. It's more the Harris ones where it's, they do a 2 count in the head. They go 1,000, 2,000. He's not flag. Yeah. So
I think though, when you watch this one, it wasn't in that grey area of 1 second. It was like in that kind of 3 second kind of like blatantly obvious. We'd have to check the tape, obviously, but it looked bad for
let's be honest.
fans.
Rogers put the call in and said, "Hey, I need the Ravens to be doing good so we can get good TV with the Chiefs. So let him have a chance here." So,
yeah, the fix was in. Let's be honest. Detroit ain't bothering no one later in the season.
They do have 2 fantasy relevant running backs though. Swift has been doing great. Jamal Williams coming over from the pack has also been doing really well for them. Interesting, though, they did cut Jamie Collins during the week for nothing. He was their starting inside linebacker, tried and trade him, couldn't get a deal, so they just binned him and cut him.
Very unusual. Made the Pro Bowl, I think, back with the Patriots back in the day. NFL.
I think he's 32.
Yeah, getting on a little bit. Has also had a stint with the Browns there, Jamie Collins. I'll tell you who I do want to talk about, Jamal Williams, and we missed this one last week. The former Packer gave one of the funniest interviews that you will see following the NFL or any sport, if you will. He was saying how Green Bay's his ex-girlfriend. They didn't want him. They gave him a slick. He winds up at Detroit, and Detroit's like his rebound. And he's giving the interview saying, they're feeding me good, you know what I'm saying? They're taking me to dinner, you know what I'm saying? He's saying that Detroit's like the rebound. It's the opportunity. It's one man's trash is another man's treasure. And Jamal Williams, he's a character. I implore you to go check that video out on YouTube if you haven't seen it already. Jamal Williams interview. It'll be the first one that comes up.
So then if we flip over and talk about the Bears, they were bad. They got 47 yards of total offense last week, which was less than Justin Tucker got on that field goal we just mentioned before.
Yes.
I think
considerable.
Yeah. And I think I mentioned it as well that I don't like Justin Fields' chances. He's probably going to be running for his life. Did get sacked 9 times in this one.
He picked that one.
Yeah, he's banged up. Andy Dalton's banged up. I think Nick Foles is also banged up. They're trying to work out who's going to be quarterback. I think Dalton did practice today, so he's looking likely he's going to be their quarterback in this one. don't think it matters. I've actually picked Detroit in this, even though they're 0-3. I think they're going to beat Chicago.
You bastard. This was my upset, my one of the week. I've gone Detroit here too. Chicago have not shown much, especially last week. That offensive line is horrendous. And the defense, Chicago, they pride themselves on a defense. They've been pretty ordinary of late. So I've gone Detroit here. Not very confident, but I don't mind it as a bit of sneaky value.
Yeah. Tips and odds, Max?
Interesting. I'm not going to put the curse on the Lions, so you guys might be all right this week. I have gone the Bears. Again, no real confidence on this side of the ball either. They are heading into the matchup favourites at $1.63. Lions are out at $2.30 at the moment, and we've got a line of 42.
So that means we now need to talk about Tennessee taking on the New York Jets. There's not much you can talk about the Titans. They pound the rock. King Henry is excellent, leading rushing yards. He ran over Darnus Leonard during
Darius. There we go.
Sorry.
Peter Anderson.
Got there. Got there.
Did you guys, Marks, did you see that one? It was because Darius Leonard is a multiple Pro Bowler, and he, like Derrick Henry out there ending man's careers. Like this was a big old truck, sent him probably a good 3 yards in the air.
Yeah.
Well, it's also really impressive.
You love to see it as well, though.
Yeah. What's also impressive with Henry is his involvement more in the passing game as well. Yeah. And we've already been tracking his catches. I think he was at 9 last week. He's now up to 12. Had 19 all of last season, so it looks like he will easily eclipse that. What's also interesting, Tannehill doesn't like to slide. Him and Danny Dimes, also another one that's been running a bunch. Got 56 rushing yards. But we have to monitor the health of AJ Brown.
Especially my fantasy team that took him in the second round, and he's given me absolute peanuts so far. He's a physical specimen, a former Ole Miss teammate of DK Metcalf, and he's cut from the same cloth. But he's got this hamstring issue. I'm
pretty sure I told you that they signed Julio Jones. They've got AJ Brown. It's purely so they can establish the run. They send them deep, and then we'll pound them. That's all they're there. They're decoys.
Mind you, Julio has been quite good for any fantasy owners of Julio. He's getting a few catches. He's already found the end zone, I think, twice. On the other side of the ball, we've got the New York Jets coming into town. They have been dreadful. They have scored 20 points on the season. They've got Corey Davis, who is a former Titan and also a Pep's fantasy player. He's been riding the pine, but I'd like to see him do a little bit here. I imagine that the Titans are pretty short favourites here. And look, we talk about Detroit fans. Who would want to be a Detroit fan? Who would want to be a New York Jets fan?
Well, yeah, the Jets and Giants are both 0-3, so I think there's a lot of Buffalo Bills fans currently. I just want to shout out the Jets were shut out last week by Denver. And it's interesting, in the last 2 decades, I think Denver's had 4 shutouts and 3 of them against the Jets. So, yeah, a bit of a bogey there.
Fun
I also want to mention Corey Davis. He was asked at a press conference today whether the Titans even considered offering him a contract, and his answer was no, sir. So I don't think there's any love lost there.
He'll be out there to try and prove himself. Look, I don't think it'll be enough to turn this game. Again, expect a lot of action from the King Henry, but I think the Titans do this pretty comfortably.
Yeah, I agree. Max?
Yeah, I've gone Titans as well. They are favourites heading into the match. $1.28 with Jets out at $3.72.
That's pretty short for NRL. NFL.
Yeah.
NRL is 1-1. For NFL, that's short.
Pretty much. Yeah, it is. Total match points of 44.5. Line for this one is 7. So that's interesting.
I'd be very interested in taking that.
Yeah.
I'm going to go for a quick loo break. Can you take us away with Cleveland and Minnesota, please? I'll be back in a second.
Can do. And we'll start with Minnesota because Kirk Cousins has been playing pretty lights out. Almost got 1,000 yards on the season, 8 touchdowns, no interceptions. They are 1-2, but they're very close to being 3-0. of course, losing in overtime to the Bengals and 1 point loss to the Cards. Dalvin Cook was a healthy scratch last week, and Alexander Madison take over the replace, and he had 112 rushing yards. I did see someone bet like, I'm going to say $1,000 on him to be the leading rusher of that week for a potential 75K payout. But Derrick Henry had 113 yards. He had 1 yard more than him. So he finished second.
That is brutal.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty brutal. I feel bad for that punter.
Yeah.
That bet. Minnesota, though, they take on Cleveland. The Browns were way too good for the Bears. They have an absolute two-headed monster in Hunt and Chubb over there. Both in the top 10 fantasy running backs on the same team. OBJ was back. He's looking pretty smooth. 5 catches, 77 yards. And Myles Garrett has 4.5 sacks already. Could have had a 5.5, but he did slip trying to get to Fields. Could be in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year as well, already on a fast track.
That's it. Oh, he's always there and thereabouts.
This, I think, is going to be an excellent game of football. Minnesota's record might be a bit deceiving. I think they are a very good football team offensively. Not so sure about their defense, which may be their struggle point in this one against Cleveland. I have picked Cleveland because I think they are on a tear and going to win the North and will be very deep into the playoffs, is my thoughts.
Yeah, Minnesota a bit interesting, losing to Cincinnati week 1. Arizona.
Yeah, I like we've gone Cleveland too, but I'm not in.
He's about. What is my?
Yeah, right.
Is that internet fucking out?
Yeah, you come back. It's all good.
You did now.
Marks was just saying how he was picking Cleveland as well, I think. And I think you were backing him up and saying Cleveland as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll tell you what, boys, can't wait to be back in the studio.
That's it.
Fuck this virtual shit off. This should be a great game.
Yeah, agree. Definitely.
Yeah.
Marks?
Definitely. So Vikings definitely looking for a bounce back to right their ship for the season in week 4, but I have gone Cleveland. They are favourites at $1.68 at the moment. The Vikings are out at $2.20, and we have total match points of 51.5.
Quite high there on the total, so I'd expect this to be quite high scoring, considering both teams have those high-powered offenses, but that Cleveland defense is the difference for mine.
Yeah, agree. Same point.
Definitely.
Then we got Indianapolis Colts, who are 0-3 at the moment as well, being a playoff team last year, taking on the Miami Dolphins, who just lost to the Raiders in overtime. They're 1-2. Colts D struggling a little bit. As I just mentioned, they were a playoff team, but currently allowing 27 points a game and only have 6 sacks on the season. Miami, on the other hand, as mentioned, coming off that red-hot start, did get a pick 6 and a long touchdown round by Malcolm Brown. Peyton Barber has looked really good for them coming across, filling in for Josh Jacobs and no Drake really getting much of a go there either, which is interesting.
Yeah. Guess whose fantasy team he's on? I thought Josh Jacobs, Kenyon Drake, he was lights out for Arizona a few years ago, and it was all Peyton Barber. So, yeah, listen to me. Take what I say with the NFL with a grain of salt.
Yeah, especially his fantasy football news. So what do we think here? Welch is playing. He's got sprains in both his ankles, but he's playing on, which is a testament to his ability to play with pain. On the other side, Jacob Brissett is going to keep playing for them. He did play. He started off a bit. They started off really well, then had a really lull period against the Raiders for a reason, but then came back strong in that fourth to push the overtime, to get the touchdown, to get the 2-point conversion. But of course, they did lose in overtime to the Raiders. What are you guys thinking in this one? I actually think I might have gone an upset here.
I hope someone did, because I tipped Miami, but I really wanted to go the Colts. It was maybe the home field advantage at Hard Rock Stadium for mine, but there's no reason why Indianapolis can't go out there and beat Miami, a tourless Miami. And not to take anything away from Jacoby Brissett, he wasn't bad last week, but I think Carson Wentz is a better quarterback, even if he is a bit banged up. Sean, did you go the Colts?
I did pick the Colts, and I also got to remember this is a bit of a revenge game for Jacob too, because
I was going to mention that, yeah.
Because I think he backed up Phillip Rivers last year, and then they didn't re-sign him and brought Wentz in. I think that's the history for their quarterback situation. But even with that, I don't know. I think the Colts need to get off their donut, and I potentially see it being against Miami this week. Mr. Muggy?
Yeah, no, I like this matchup for the Colts as well. I have gone them for the upset. So that being said, they are the underdogs at $2.14. Dolphins are at $1.71, so still a very close matchup. And we've got a total match points of 42.5.
Yeah, low scoring. I don't mind that.
Yeah, well, I think they both can score points. So then we move into Carolina taking on Dallas. Carolina being 3-0, one of the few teams having a great start to the season, and Dallas 2-1 after dismantling the Eagles on Monday Night Football. It was very much, a Dak, Zeke, Tony Polo pitched in. It was a bit of a show of the offense of what they're capable over there. They had 41 rushing attempts. Dak did what he needed to do, and really converted. Dallas on the flip side, they played pretty well. But they were playing Texans, weren't they? They played pretty well, but they were playing Texans.
Yeah, Carolina. You said Dallas, but Carolina.
Yes, on
Thursday. They played the Texans, and they pretty much commanded that game, especially in the second half. CMC had the hamstring injury. It seems like he won't be good to go this week. That man, Chuba Hubbard. I think it's true. I think they say Chuba, but I want to say Chuba Hubbard. He'll be the starting running back for the Panthers. We see a really nice matchup between this stout Panthers defense that's given up 30 points against this high-powered Dallas offense that's scored 90 points. The Panthers are a bit like Denver for me, and we'll get to Denver in a second, in that they've played the Jets, the Texans, and the Saints aren't bad, but two of those teams aren't great. So perhaps that this stout defense might be a function of not playing a really good team just yet. This one is in Dallas, and I have gone Dallas here.
Yeah, I've gone Dallas as well. I think they're starting to hit their strides a bit. Dak's back. He's in the rhythm, playing at home. I do like to turn it on, especially playing at home. So I've gone them, Mr. Monkey.
Yep. I've gone Dallas at home as well. As you mentioned, Carolina's strength of schedule so far hasn't been all that great. Obviously, winning to the Saints means something for them, but the other two games don't really show, I guess, what they're fully capable of against a team like the Cowboys. So Cowboys are favourites at $1.47. Panthers are out at $2.68. We've got a line of 50.5 for two teams that probably have been scoring a fair few points. So what do you think about that?
50.5. Yeah, that might be a bit juicy. Dallas can score points. What did they score? 43 the other day.
They're averaging 30 a game, but I don't know if Carolina is scoring enough for me to be interested in that.
And with CMC out's a huge one as well.
DJ that really stepped up from though. So
massive with CMC not being there. Quite short for mine head to head there, Dallas, considering they're playing an undefeated team. But a really interesting battle. And that Dallas offense, for any fantasy owners out there, a lot of people aren't big fans of the Cowboys, considering that they're America's team, big market, Jerry Jones, yada yada. They've got about 5 or 6 guys that are fantasy relevant. So a lot of guys will be interested in what happens there on the offensive side of the ball.
Yep.
Definitely.
So then we move into talking about the Giants taking on the Saints. So the New York Giants taking on New Orleans. Giants still winless. Daniel Jones hasn't been too bad. Probably hasn't converted enough with the receivers he's got touchdown wise. He has scored, only 2 passing touchdowns, but he's scored 2 rushing touchdowns. Saquon starting to get back to glimmers of his previous best, had 22 touches and played 86% of the snaps and did fine pay dirt. We did all tip the Saints to upset Patriots last week. Winston only completed 13 passes and 2 touchdowns, but they did get the victory in that, didn't they?
Much like that game in week 1 where they went out against the Packers.
Yeah, I think Mac Jones had 50 attempts or something as well. So
just their running game's looking really good. Their defense is playing good. I still don't know why the Saints were underdogs in that game. We all went the Saints and all got that tip right. This one, look, pretty tall ask for the Giants to go into the Superdome and knock off the Saints here. I imagine you boys have all gone the Saints, as have I. Yes.
Yeah, I agree. And I think Winston's passing numbers probably reflect how Alvin Kamara has gone for them at the moment. He's been really good. I've also picked the Saints.
What's the line here, Monks? Give us the head-to-head, but I imagine the line might be more interesting than the head-to-head.
Yep. Yeah. So Saints are favourite for the head-to-head at $1.26. We've got Giants out at $3.90 at the moment. We have total match points of 41.5, and we have a line of 7.
41.5 is very low. I like the overs there. I like the overs.
Yeah, I agree on that. Then we take on a very surprising Kansas City Chiefs versus Philadelphia, both 1-2 to start the season. There has been a few moments that Mahomes may look like he's human. Some of that might have to do with his offensive line and where he is in his dropbacks. Some of those dropbacks, I think, on the weekend, he got to 5 deep and there was 2 guys in his face. So he did have throwing a pick in that game. So interested I'll get your thoughts on Chiefs in a minute, but I'll just round up. Philly were definitely outclassed by the Cowboys. They did have 2 costly intercepts by Jalen Hurts. They were behind all game, only had 3 rushing attempts for Miles Sanders. I think he had 1 massive gain in that as well. So
he ripped one off, but
really a missed opportunity. I think Jalen Hurts said, they laid a deuce in this one, and when you lay a deuce, you don't stare there and look at it all the time. You flush it down the toilet and move on. So
poetic.
Yeah, hopefully they've done that, and we'll see how they go in this one. But talent-wise, I think the Chiefs are the better team. But what are your thoughts on Chiefs 1 and 2 to start the year?
Yeah, well, we've seen Mahomes being human, which is very unusual. That pick that he threw when they were 24 apiece was unnecessary. It was forced, and it just shows that the bloke is not a robot or an alien or something that was made somewhere else. No one saw Kansas City going to 1-2. I tell you what, though, boys, it's 3 games of football. Don't worry, they'll still be there come the business end of the season, and I think they take care of business here. That they'll have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. They don't see themselves as a 1-2 team. I think Mahomes and Kelsey and Hill and Andy Reid will want to get a convincing win at Lincoln Financial Field.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think they need to start their run, and potentially this is the spot. Bit of worrying news for Andy Reid. He was taken to hospital after the game. He had some illness, but I believe, on quick check, he's okay. He's making jokes about he needs to be on his own injury report. So I think Andy's okay. He's just had a little bit of illness after that match.
Anecdotally, I don't think the treadmill would hurt Andy all that much. But look, he's got 2 Super Bowl rings, and I've got 0. So keep doing you, Andy.
Might need to What's your tips and odds?
Yeah. I've tipped the Chiefs as well. Definitely need a little bit of a bounce back, a little bit of a slow start to the season, where that's a bit of the Super Bowl hangover from last year that we're seeing. They are favourites at $1.30 at the moment. We've got Eagles out at $3.54, and we have a total match points of 54.5.
The final of the early games is Houston taking on Buffalo. Texans, of course, coming off that loss, as mentioned before, Carolina. It was David Mills' first start, and he's going to start in this game as well with Tyrone Taylor still out injured. And I don't think they're expecting him back for at least another month. So we're going to see what Mills has got. Of course, he was taken in the 8th quarterback overall in the 3rd round out of Stanford last year. But yeah, didn't really generate much offense, got sacked 4 times. They can't run the ball. I don't like their chances against Buffalo, who walk into Josh Allen that had 358 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown last week against the Washington football team. Looks like Amanda Sanders has probably asserted himself as the number 2 there. Let's talk about Gabriel Davis during, he was a deep sleeper during the off season, but Sanders looks like he's cemented his spot there. And of course, in this high-powered offense, yeah, he's fantasy relevant. So
yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah, so I don't think the head-to-head might be too interesting this because I think we're all going to pick Buffalo and the Bills in this one. Total match points might be interesting because we'll have to see if Houston comes to this dance party, whether Buffalo will have to carry it or not.
This has got to be 14 and a half.
Yeah. And 48 total match points.
Yep. So obviously we're going the Bills here. They are favourites $1.06. Houston is out at $9.50 at the moment. So there's your NRL line that you've been looking for. The line is 15.5.
Ooh, unusual.
Yep. And we've got total match points of 47. So very close on both.
First one off.
Yeah.
So close, but so far. And on the Esky story.
And that's all it takes when you're betting as well. You can easily lose your money.
Yeah. It is. Yeah. Late games, and this potentially could be the match of the round. The 3-0 Arizona Cardinals, taking on the Cardinals would be funny. Taking on the LA Rams, who are also 3-0. This is looking like an excellent matchup. Cards coming off that win over the Jags. Rams coming off their win against the Buccaneers. That's how they played, on the last week. So they won that. They won that match 34-24. Nuke was a bit quiet last week. He does have rib injury at the moment, and I potentially think he's a bit out there to be a bit of a decoy. So AJ Green and Christian Kirk have a bit of action. The Rams, on the other hand, Cooper Kupp's winning new fantasy leagues at the moment. He is the number 1 receiver in football. Hard to pick in this. I think I've gone Cards purely because I've got Cards in my fantasy team. But I think this is an excellent football match coming up. Matt Stafford has been very, very good for the Rams.
Unbelievable.
Feel bad for Bobby Trees at the moment, not getting anywhere near the targets he was getting. But we'll have to see how that goes progressing wise in the season. But Cooper Kupp has been the favourite for Stafford so far. Who'd you pick, Peps?
I went Rams here. I think this is hard to pick. Matt Stafford has been an enlightenment there for the LA Rams. And a little tidbit for you boys. Sean McVay, if they're leading at the half, he's 40-0, if you don't mind. So if the Rams get out to a halftime lead, he doesn't lose.
Did you see McVay celebrating at halftime, getting the boys pumped up, running into it? He might have had a couple of those bags from the NRL players beforehand. The activity he had.
That'll be short. Not till after they win the Super Bowl or go close.
And he was very hyped up.
All cocaine jokes aside, this is an awesome matchup. It's kind of a bit of a shame that it's not in prime time, but we will get to the Sunday night primetime game in a sec, which is intriguing. Monks, what are your thoughts here? I'd like to know the overs. Both these teams can score points. I imagine it's quite high, and the head-to-head as well, if you wouldn't mind.
Feeling 58, but they might have done something. No, I said 58.
It'd be.
I'm thinking 55. Sorry, I was meant to say 55, but it wouldn't surprise me if they've gone even higher than that.
You're right. in regards to the game, it's great to see Matt Stafford and his, I guess, renaissance
Shout
coming
out
back.
to Megatron being 36 today.
Happy
Really?
birthday, Megatron.
That's crazy to think that Tom Brady's 8 years older than Megatron.
Still playing in the league.
Yeah. No, it's great to finally see Stafford get the success he deserves. Definitely a great quarterback there. I have gone the Rams. They are favourites $1.43. Cards are sitting out at $2.86 at the moment. And we've got total match points of 54.5.
Ooh.
Well,
It's up there, but I don't mind it.
neither do I. I think that's tempting.
Well, both Cards and Rams are averaging over 30 points a game.
Quick maths,
Obviously.
that's come on.
Bet the overs.
That's it. Mind you, Rams D is crazy. Obviously you got Donald there in front.
But haven't been as good as what had been projected. They are giving up a few points. I don't know if that's a function of each game they get out to an early lead and then the other team's kind of slinging it and chasing the lead. But that's old Rams defense that makes you a bit scared. Hasn't been quite so scary this year, but that offense is lights out.
Yeah. So then Seattle Seahawks taking on the San Francisco 49ers coming up. Another team at 1 and 2 in the Seattle Seahawks that you thought might be doing a bit better, knowing their offense and their quarterback being Danger Russ. I think Tyler Lockett went off during that last game. They were worried about his knee, but I think he returned in the back end of that game, so he should be okay. 49ers, on the other hand, they did have a bit of a heartbreak, as we mentioned, to the Rodgers Crosby kicking the late field goal with Rodgers getting them down there within the 37 seconds to win that. Trey Lance had a rushing touchdown. George Kittle was starting to look like old Kittle. I think they were probably missing some running back help and didn't get the receivers Debo Samuels involved enough, you would think. Maybe they correct that in this game. I'm not sure who I've picked in this. It should be another great game of football with teams that are very similar. 49ers defense, Joey Bosa has been excellent to start the year so far. I think I've picked the Seahawks for mine.
That's big. I think I've gone the Niners. I think just based on the home field advantage. I think their defense is pretty good. But yeah, wouldn't surprise me if Seattle go out and get a win here. The big thing for mine here is how good is the fucking NFC West.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's probably the best division in football.
I think without doubt.
Yeah.
What? Yeah, I've gone 49ers as well, based off home field advantage. They are favourites, $1.67. Seattle's out at $2.22. And we've got total match points of 52.
Quite high.
Yeah, the Seahawks can put up points, though. I'm not sure if 49ers can chase them enough. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
It will be interesting.
Then we move into Baltimore Ravens taking on the Denver Broncos, 2-1 and 3-0 respectively. As mentioned, the Ravens stuck home in that last game. They did have a lot of players out with COVID protocols. The Ravens are one of the clubs consistent from last year as well. They've been struggling with the old Coco. Hollywood Brown did drop three touchdowns in this, potentially open, and could have put up some extra points to put them ahead against the Lions.
Yeah, reminiscent of a young Pizzulo in the end zone. Yeah, when I was young.
Denver, on the other hand, they went currently 3-0. They did shut out the Jets, as I mentioned before. Their defense has looked really good. Only allowed 26 points on the season. We do have a few injuries. KJ Hamler is out with an ACL for the season. He's done. Both Glasgow and Reisner, the starting guards, have their respective knee and foot injuries. Both didn't practice today. Not sure whether they will. Maybe one of them will be back. Unsure if either will play in this week's game. I think Peps wanted to mention it. The combined record of Denver's opponents is 0-9. So they really enter the meaty part of their schedule, and there's a lot of really good teams on it. They potentially could not win another game for the next 2 months with the record of the guys that come over. Well, I think they've got Ravens, they've got Chiefs, and they've got Raiders, I think, twice in that time frame. Steelers as well. There's a lot of really good football teams in there, and they could lose a lot of them. This is probably a really big test for them. I've picked Denver because I'm a homer in here. This one, of course, but it's a game I could see them winning just with the way the Ravens have gone, this slowish start and all their issues they've kind of got over there, sneaking home against the Lions. It is in Denver, and Denver has an excellent crowd. I think they had the highest attendance for crowd last week as well. So maybe that makes a difference, whatever it is. Very interesting to see. I think it's going to be a good game of football, but it'll be a true test of where Denver's at so far in the season.
Yeah, can't wait for this one. I've gone the Ravens. I'm not entirely convinced on this Denver's side. On the offensive side of the ball, I think defensively they're legit. I think they're very strong. And look, I'm not super confident with this pick, especially seeing the way that Baltimore played against the Detroit Lions. They should get some players back off the COVID protocol list this week, but I've gone Baltimore with not much confidence. Mark the deciding pick and the odds, if you will.
Yep. So I have gone Baltimore as well. They are favourites heading into the matchup at $1.84. The Broncos are only out at $1.97 at the moment. So
that's close.
Very, very close. I think it's one of the closest matchup in terms of betting odds this week. And we've got total match points of 45.5.
Yeah, I was going to say it was going to be low. I think they could put that on. It might be a close over, so maybe it's not worth touching, but I think they can do that.
Let's move forward into Pittsburgh at Green Bay. The Steelers are 1-2 after upsetting Buffalo in week 1. They've since lost to the Raiders and the Bengals. We spoke about it before. Big Ben, he's looking a little bit old. He had 2 picks against the Bengals. A bright spark, at least for fantasy owners, is the rookie Najee Harris out of Alabama. He had 14 receptions on 19 targets. I think that's more of a function of the Steelers not being able to throw the ball deep. Big Ben going check down. Maybe that's an arm strength thing.
Yeah,
maybe.
I think you mentioned it with age. The old Big Ben, maybe it's really caught up to him very quickly. That maybe the deep ball's gotten away from him. Hey, that's good for Harris fantasy owners if he's getting 14 catches a week.
Especially PPR. The Packers, on the other hand, they had that kind of miraculous win on Sunday Night Football at the 49ers. Devontae Adams and Aaron Jones showing why they're premier guys in the league, and that big Mason Crosby field goal for the win. Boys, who have we got here? Obviously, me as a cheesehead at Lambeau, starting to show a little bit of promise after that very disappointing first week. I have gone the Packers.
Same here, Packers.
Yep, I've gone Packers as well. As you mentioned, Steelers' offense is a little bit slow at the moment. Their defense hasn't really been able to help them too much. Obviously, with TJ Watt still injured, I believe. So Green Bay are favourites, $1.32. Steelers are out at $3.44 at the moment, and we've got total match points of 45.5.
Don't mind the overs there, to be honest. I think Green Bay will try and push the envelope early here. That Steelers defense that last year was very scary. Not quite where they were at. Obviously, TJ Watt being out doesn't help that. But let's move into the big one, boys. Sunday Night Football. There's a reason why this is prime time. The theatre of it, the entertainment that comes with professional sports, the return of the GOAT, the return of the king. For any fans out there. I am talking about Tom Brady going back to Foxborough, Massachusetts to take on the team that he was with, for about 240 years. That is the New England Patriots. They're coming off a loss to the Saints. We all picked the Saints in that one. Mac Jones looked like a bit of a rookie in that with 3 picks. James White, quite a severe hip injury, it seems. I think he will be out for a number of weeks. And Mac Jones kind of picking up a bit of rapport with Kendrick Bourne and Jacoby Myers. The Bucks, the Super Bowl champs, a lot of people had them going undefeated this year. They've copped an L to the Rams. Brady led them in rushing yards. That's testament to where they were in the game. They were behind the whole time. They had to throw the pigskin and try and catch up. And all eyes will be on that man returning to the place that he brought so much joy to so many fans for so long. And Richard Sherman has been picked up by the Bucks. What's your understanding of this one, boys? What's going on here?
Well, Bucks secondary, they're decimated at the moment.
And he's been talking about that all year as well. Monk's saying, "Hey, I'm worried about the Bucks secondary," and we're like, "Nah, they're okay. They're all good." And I think the Rams really showed that. Oh, maybe there's a few holes there. Deshaun Jackson just killed them with speed. So
that's it.
I'm not sure if Richard Sherman fixes that, but hey, a veteran presence and talent like him, you'd always want to add someone like that to your defensive back room. So maybe he fixes that hole like Monkey thought they potentially needed another person there.
Multiple Pro Bowler. He's been, there with Seattle right to, to a Super Bowl win. Look, he's going to bring some veteran presence at least out of anything. Maybe some mentoring.
Was he on the Niners team when they went to the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I think he was on the Niners, and I think he was on the Seahawks when
he's definitely on he's won a Super Bowl with the Seahawks.
Yeah,
with them.
Yeah,
I just couldn't remember if he was on that one where they went.
Yeah, I feel like he was.
Yeah, I think he was.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, he definitely brings that veteran presence. I don't think it's necessarily going to help the secondary immediately. I think it is more of that mentorship sort of space. I guess his production has dropped off over the last couple of years. Not to say that can't change. I mean, obviously Tom Brady is still killing it at the moment, so maybe we can see a resurgence in Sherman.
Tom Brady on that stem cell shit, but he's on something different.
That's it. Well, maybe now that Sherman's on the Bucks team, Brady can hook him up with something, and they can wind back the clock a little bit for Sherman as well.
How old is he?
Sherman.
Age on Richard Sherman, he'd only be early to mid 30s.
33.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's not past it in the NFL.
It's old for a cornerback, though.
It is.
But hey, we'll see how it goes over there. Maybe he just needs to fill in a role and help the young guys they've got over there.
Sure.
But in this game, I don't think any of us are picking anyone else but the Bucks. Patriots still got a long way to go. Mac Jones has looked pretty good. They've asked him to throw 50 passes, I think, twice already this season. So they obviously really like him. I just don't think his receiving talent is where it needs to be for that squad. We didn't mention it, and I think Josh Gordon with them last, or was he with Patriots last? I can't remember. Anyway, Josh Gordon's now with the Chiefs.
Yeah, Patriots, I believe.
Yeah.
Missed that bit of news before. Josh Gordon is on the Chiefs. He's on the practice squad.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a full roster spot just yet. Obviously had an incredible year or two back in the day with the Cleveland Browns, and has
2013. Like that's
a long time ago. So I don't think any fantasy relevance. Look,
I've seen everyone the memes joking about. It's like it's been ages since he's not relevant. He's going to the Chiefs, but they go, projection 76 catches, 1,200 yards, and 20 touchdowns. Like, because he's just on the Chiefs. Like.
Physically, he's a specimen. He's got the talent to do it. Obviously, been through a lot of adversity in his career. So, be interesting to see what happens there with Josh Gordon at the Chiefs. But obviously, look, an undernote really in what's going on in NFL. Amongst the odds.
But not receiving talent they can help Patriots is what I meant. So why?
No, not at all.
There's some odds in this. We all picked Tampa.
Yeah, I just double checked that he don't know if he got cut or he must have got cut from Patriots. He was at the Seahawks.
I couldn't remember the order.
Last. Yeah.
Seahawks was last. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's it. Sorry, yeah. So we're on Bucks here. They are favourites $1.31. The Patriots are out at $3.47, and we've got a line of 49.5.
Total match points.
Yeah, total match points.
49. That's like when
Sorry.
Alabama plays Appalachian State or something in there. Moving on, Monday Night Football. This is a juicy matchup in the AFC West. We've got the undefeated Las Vegas Raiders taking on the 2-1 Los Angeles Chargers. Boys, the Raiders coming off the overtime win against the Dolphins there. We mentioned it before, Peyton Barber, very big in the absence of Josh Jacobs. And the Chargers pulling off one of the upsets of the year, going over to Arrowhead and getting a win there. Justin Herbert was close to perfect, 26 of 38 for 281 yards and 4 touchdowns. And I'll tell you who we need to talk about, Mike Williams. The bloke was out of Clemson. He was a first-round pick, I think 7th overall. He's shown a little bit, but not really a 7th overall kind of talent. Until
everyone's been waiting for his breakout.
Yeah, it seems like it's this year. He had 2 touchdowns against the Chiefs. He's had 4 TDs on the season. It is early days. He's 2nd overall in fantasy for wide receivers. He's a big man. The contested ball, he'll go up and get it. Interesting to see Mike Williams coming along this year.
Who are we picking though? What's your choice in this one? Because it is a pretty important battle in the AFC West, because Raiders and Denver both been at 3-0, Chargers 2-1, and then they've got, remember, the Chiefs are going to be hunting them down at the bottom of the division currently at 1 and 2. So any divisional battle like this is super important, especially with the Chargers already beating the Chiefs. They take a 2-0 lead in the division for their divisional battles. I'm going to go Chargers at home. And that might not reflect what I've said in the past. I haven't picked the Raiders, but it's a hard one to. No, maybe I'll back myself in from my previous thoughts. Go the Raiders.
Oh, you dog! I was all over the Raiders here. I thought Derek Carr and that offense. He's spreading the ball. He's getting Waller involved. He's getting Renfro involved. He's getting Brian Edwards involved. Josh Jacobs may or may not be healthy, but we saw Peyton Barber play a role there. I've gone the Las Vegas Raiders, but that's to take nothing away from this Chargers side, who have been very, very good. And any team that can go to Kansas City and get a win can't be ruled out of the equation. But I've gone the Raiders.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game and can really go either way. Just looking at the Raiders had led up. They're given 28 to the Finns, 27 to the Ravens, but not the Steelers. The luckless Steelers to only 17 points.
Well, close.
I can see the talent on the Chargers side, but I'm going to stick with my original thoughts and think the way the Raiders have been playing, they've been playing pretty well, especially in prime time. Not getting on TV. So on a Monday night game, it's not in Vegas, so I can't go to overtime, but they've been doing pretty well.
That's it. Yeah, I've gone Raiders as well. Obviously, both teams have very electric offenses. But yeah, Raiders I think just are too good at the moment. Obviously, with leading in yards per game or total yards anyway for offense. They do go into this matchup as underdogs. They're sitting at $2.38 at the moment. Charges are $1.59, and we've got a line of 52.5.
Yeah, so the bookies reckon a few points in this one. So we've all backed an underdog here. That is quite unusual on the Esky. I'm getting manly vibes here. But alas, that'll wrap up our NFL chat, boys. Week 4, can't wait. Look, we obviously love our NFL here on the Esky, but we might need to move into the final round.
Yeah, so yeah, final round kick us off. Let's talk about the UFC and talk about the fighting that's happened over the weekend, because there's been a lot of really good or big news to come out. UFC 266, and I think we're
Huge
gonna
card.
we'll start with the main event and then do it in reverse order because we like to confuse people. But we want to talk about Alex Volkanovski, as I mentioned in the intro. He did retain his belt, but what a fight. Ended up being a complete war against Brian Ortega, especially that third round. There was, I think, at least 2 guillotine attempts, and there's a triangle attempt in that round alone. I think there was another guillotine in the following round as well. 2 of those were very, very deep. And I think Volk's quote where they were, "Oh, fuck, I'm going to lose the belt deep," was his quote. So, but I think I joked to you boys that Volk doesn't need oxygen to breathe, because those guillotines looked very, very tight.
Mate, I think the bloke's got gills. I think he breathes out of his neck or something like a fish. I had Volk via KO or TKO. My mate and listener of the Esky, shout out to you, Johnny Cronin-Dixon, if you're listening, he had Ortega via submission. And the back and forth between us as we were watching this one was insane. I don't know what Volk had greased himself up with to slip out of something. There was times when you were looking at his bald head and it was a completely different color to the rest of his body. I thought Ortega had got him in the guillotine or in that triangle and somehow managed to weasel out of it. And I tell you what, outside of those submission attempts, it was all Volk in this. His stand-up game, much superior to Ortega. He inflicted a lot of damage with his striking. And obviously, as Australians, very happy to see him come away with the belt here, or defending his belt, I should say. 20 wins in a row for Volk. That's nothing to sneeze at. And his post-match was very interesting. No Rogan there, unfortunately. So it was Big DC, Daniel Cormier. He's about twice the size of Volkanovski. He had the post-match or the post-fight honors, if you will, and Volk just said, as true blue as you can say, I'm doing it for you guys back home. He's obviously seen a bit of what's going on with the lockdowns and unfortunately protests and riots and that. And he said, I do it for my family, I do it for myself, I do it for my gym, and I do it for you guys back home. So made me pretty proud to be Australian, I must say.
Yep. Yeah. And the result did go to judge's decision. I had Ortega only taken 1 round. 2 of the judges gave all the rounds to Volk, and 1 actually gave him a 10-8 in one of the rounds. I couldn't say I saw a 10-8 in there.
But it's quite unusual.
Yeah, but he did dominate throughout and did win quite convincingly in this fight. There was a little bit of back and forth after this from Oscar De La Hoya, who did pull out of his fight against Belford because maybe he didn't want any of that. But they went back and forth on fighter pay with Dana White. That is a much larger conversation than I think we need to go into, because Dana White likes to compare the UFC to the NFL a little bit, but the NFL has unions and medical benefits and a whole bunch of other stuff that the UFC doesn't. So it's probably not worth a conversation going into, but you look at what the say the heavyweight fight we'll talk about at the end in boxing and what they're getting paid to what say Volk will get in this, which may be lucky to push $500,000. It's a very, very different segment of fighter pay what the UFC makes from their pay-per-views.
Sure. You know who probably doesn't care that much? Alexander Volkanovski. Like, he doesn't seem to be that kind of guy that wants to cruise around in the Lamborghini and wear a Conor McGregor, if you will. He seems pretty happy just being the best at what he does. I can't speak for the bloke, but that's what I tend to see when I watch Volk. Look, it's going to be something that we talk about again on the Esky, the fighter pay, the discrepancies. If Volk wanted to go do one of these, exhibition boxing matches, let's say, against a Paul brother or a Tyrone Woodley or something like that, of course he can make a lot more money. I think he's pretty happy just being dominant in his chosen profession, and no one's coming close at the moment. And we've got an Australian champion that no one can beat. So for mine as a fight fan, that's pretty fun to watch.
Yeah. So we've got a note here, potentially Max Holloway, maybe they do the trilogy. Henry Cenuto had been in the chat recently, like, hey, give me that fight, because that would be another division up for him, featherweight, because he's got the banter and the straw from memory. Well, he had those belts before he relinquished them, so come up to another division.
And if you wouldn't mind, Monks, just chasing this up, Cejudo hasn't fought for over 2 years. Am I right in saying that?
I'd say pretty close. I don't think he's fought. He didn't fight leading up to COVID, and I don't think 2019 might have been his last one.
Yeah, I feel like it's over 2 years. I'd be very surprised if he could come up and knock off the champ.
Oh, there you go. The last one was May 2020.
Cejudo.
Yep. Against
Dominic Cruz.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's under what I was saying. That's 16 months. So maybe not that far removed from taking on Volkanovski, and obviously former UFC champion. Look, for me, I think it's got to be a Holloway three-peat, a trilogy. I think that's what the fans want to see.
There was bloody Conor McGregor as well, and I think Volk as well was like, wait until you get down to this division. You haven't been able to cut down to this division in 5 years or something like that. So, yeah, I don't see that happening.
Don't see that happening, but contrary to what I was just saying, if you want that cash grab, Volk, take that McGregor fight, and that would be great. A lot of Irish expats living here in Australia, I'm sure we'd like to get a little bit lippy with them, and if he was able to pull that one off. He's also 3 inches shorter and well smaller than Conor McGregor is.
Yeah, well, Conor did, of course, win this belt originally in that division, but he had to cut a lot of weight to make it, and it's been a long time since he fought in featherweight. That's what happened in the prelims. Probably
only 2 to highlight. Dan Hooker, he got his decision over the Nasrat Hakparas. Let's go with that. Afghan German fella. So good to see Dan Hooker getting that one. But the main thing out of the prelims was Merab the Machine Devashili getting an upset victory over Marlon Moraes in the bantamweight. There's an insane turnaround in this fight. Moraes had him on toast. He nearly knocked him out, but he spent a bit of gas. And then the Machine came out in the second round and got a win. It's good to see sometimes in the prelims fights that are worth talking about. I'd keep an eye on this fella. He's Georgian. He wears the Khabib hat after his fights. Merab the Machine Devashili. But moving on into the main card.
Can I just throw in? I did look it up. Conor McGregor's last featherweight fight was 2015 when he beat Aldo to win that belt, which is also a belt he never defended. So that was the last time he ever fought in there, which is a long time ago.
I'd be surprised. If it happened.
Agree. What happened in the main card, Peppy?
We had Jessica Andrade. She took on Cynthia Calvillo, the Mexican-American fighter, and she made pretty light work of it. It was a first-round TKO for Andrade. Calvillo, interestingly, had never been finished in the UFC, and Andrade made light work of her. Should she get another crack at Valentina Shevchenko? That's the question that remains.
She's number 1 ranked.
It makes sense. Makes sense. Let's just go to it now. From what we saw in the Shevchenko Lauren Murphy fight.
Yep.
Hats off to Lauren Murphy. She lasted 4 rounds before copping the TKO. However, if you took a picture of Valentina Shevchenko's face after this fight, there was not a scratch, a bruise, a bit of sweat, I don't think, on her face after this. This one went 4 rounds, but it could have easily gone 1 round. She's hands down the best fighter in her division. And also, she speaks about 4 languages. I don't know if you guys caught the post-match presser. I think I heard English. I think I heard Portuguese. I definitely heard Thai, and there might have been a few others thrown in there. The question for me with the Bullet is, will she fight Nunes? Do you think? Do you think she'll just stay where she's at, stuff putting the weight on, and just keep cleaning out these bitches?
Yeah, well, it's a great point because they fought twice,
and Nunes won both pretty comfortably.
Yeah, well, the first one was a decision which was unanimous to Nunes, which was 3 rounds. It was a unanimous decision, but that last round, Shevchenko was very much winning that, and so they always thought, hey, if they went 5 rounds, that she'd push Nunes. Looking at her record in the last, I'm going to say 20 fights, she's had 2 losses, both of them to Nunes.
Yeah.
But the other one, which was the decision, which ended up being a split decision, of course, a split decision. So one judge thought that Shevchenko had won that fight. It's actually come out in the media today that Valentina says Nunes doesn't want that 3rd fight because they know they gifted her the second one. So she's like already calling shots. Like, the problem is they are by far the 2 best women in mixed martial arts at a very similar, crossover weight division. There's just no one else close to them. And I was just trying to look at the women's flyweight division for challengers, and there's no one. Like, there's no one in the top 10 that's even ready to fight Shevchenko.
They're just too small. It just makes sense for Shevchenko to go up than any of these smaller girls, like a Rose Namajunas or a Zhai Wang or one of these smaller girls to go up.
If they come up into the flyweight division, they've already making weight to come up there. I don't think it's, and we've seen with Shevchenko, she's only just competing. She's had really close fights with Nunes. It's definitely a challenge, but we'll have to see. It sounds like that's what it sounds like with some of those media announcements. That's the angle they're pushing for, that trilogy. Nunes, I don't think, has been overly active. She won recently, but besides that, I don't think she was overly active.
I think Dana will be pushing for that. I think, to kind of bring in the casual, the people that only know the big names in women's MMA, to see Shevchenko, Nunes 3. I think, who wouldn't want to see it, really?
Yeah, and Nunes, as mentioned, she's only fought twice in the last 2 years, so once a year. So she has to slow down her activity. Was 2 times a year, 3 times a year. She slowed down a little bit and probably picking her opponents.
She hasn't really.
Problem is she's got no opponents. So
exactly, she's cleaned it out.
Yeah, and Shevchenko's at the exact same spot, so maybe it makes sense that they run that back for a trilogy. And I think they could fight to the end of time, and everyone would tune in every week to see what's going to happen in the next one.
That's it. Just before we move on, I just want to go back to the stats on this fight and just reiterate what you said, Peps, about Shevchenko just looking real good at the end of the.
Did I say Lion playing with her food? That was my thoughts.
Yeah, well, Shevchenko landed 132 strikes off 204. Murphy landed 19 strikes off 100.
Killed her.
And look, to your point, Sean, I think that's more strikes than the food would land on the Lion. The comparison is still valid, I believe. I was watching this with the wife, me and Sarah. I actually bought one. I think this is the first time that I bought one. We'll keep that one on the down low. And Sarah was looking at Bullet, just going, "Oh, she's scary." She's just so quick, though. The way that she throws those kicks, she's a class above anyone else. And I'd be very surprised if anyone in the flyweight division can knock her off the throne. For mine, I want to see Shevchenko Nunes 3.
Yep. So there was two other fights that were on this main card that we haven't talked about. There was the heavyweight fight with Curtis Blades taking on Rosenstrike. Blades did win by unanimous decision. A bit of a classic Blades fight, for my opinion. Wrestled the shit out of it, took the takedowns, avoid the power shots because he did get his eye messed up from one of them. Nice knee, some nice punches there. But yeah, it's classic Blades. Get it to the ground, beat his opponent up, win by decision. So nothing too much to write home about in this one for mine.
Yeah, a few boos coming out from the crowd. I can understand it. Not the most entertaining fight, I suppose, for the viewer, for the punter. I thought Rosenstrike might have tried to be a bit more aggressive, try and take him on with his striking, which we've seen be so deadly in the past. But Blades is a world-class wrestler, and he knows his strengths. He doesn't need to go out there and put himself at risk by standing up. He got his takedowns. And look, like you mentioned, Sean, Rosenstrike landed that knee. One or two more of those land on Curtis's head, and it's good night, Curtis. So played it really smartly, I thought, did Razor Blades, and that comes away with the heavyweight win there.
Yep. Marks, can you get me some statistics on the middleweight fight between Robbie Lawler and Nick Diaz? While I give it an intro, I want to know their strikes, their total punches thrown, because the Robbie Lawler versus Nick Diaz, on the other hand, was a slugfest or a gunfight, as in they just came out and threw everything at will. Robbie Lawler, for me, did look more explosive and threw the better hooks, but Nick Diaz looked slower, but everything he threw landed. It was just very crisp with his boxing, no threat of takedowns in this one. It was going to be all strikes, and it was plenty of strikes. Did finish in the second round with a TKO to Robbie Lawler. A lot of respect between the blokes. 16 years in the making. Third round, sorry. Yeah, I thought it went a little bit longer than that. Third round TKO.
I think that was probably my undoing in the notes there, but yeah. Look, how good was this to see two older guys? We've spoken about it on the Esky before, when you see old guys and they look kind of washed up and it's scary and it's sad. These guys still look like they could fucking pound, and hats off to them. Robbie Lawler, former champ. Diaz, who hadn't fought for 6 years, was it at UFC level? And like you say, Sean, look, he was a touch slower, but he could land them. And this was really entertaining and good to bring in kind of the older fan, people that had kind of followed the sport for a little while. And
always love this.
And to see Lawler and Diaz going at it again. It's 1-1. Any chance that they run it back once more? They might both be 40 when they do it.
Yeah, for Nick, I don't think they'll run this one back for Nick. It was kind of interesting, some of his comments. It seems like he was kind of pressured into this more than not, and that might have contributed to the weight change in the middleweight. Like he wasn't into this, trying to do the weight cut to go down from what ended up being a middleweight fight down to welterweight. So yeah, it was a bit interesting. Some of the chat for that, and some of the stuff wasn't right with Nick in his post match, post fight was what he was saying. But I think there's potentially some fun fights there they can have for Nick. Definitely draw eyeballs like this kind of one running back Robbie. That's where combat sports is at the moment. That's kind of what everyone wants to see, is those interesting fights that draw you in. So yeah, he's not going to get anyone ranked. They'll have to find someone that makes sense for Nick. But yeah, Robbie Lawler, of course, not ranked either. Not sure he also needs some fun fights, probably to finish out his career too. Do they run it back? Potentially not, I don't think. It's kind of interesting how this ended. Nick Diaz kind of took a big shot. I think it was a right hook and stayed down on his knees and didn't get back up. Looked like he may have broken his nose, and that was it for him. And yeah, if his heart wasn't in it and wasn't really in the space, even though, hey, it was a fight, and he, that was a reason. I was like, hey, I'm done. I've already getting wailed on. We've beaten each other up. You've seen enough. I broke my nose. I'm done.
Yeah, and hats off to him. Look, it's pretty easy for someone to sit back in their lounge chair and criticise a bloke for not going around again. But once your nose is broken, it's a different story, I guess. So look, I was happy with the 3 rounds of entertainment that these guys provided.
definitely.
Definitely. Do you want to go to just the stats real quick?
Yeah, thank you. I did ask you to get that.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so crazy. So total strikes. So I'll start with significant strikes. Pretty much every single strike in this fight was significant strikes. So we had, for Nick Diaz, he had 150 significant strikes land off 339. So very productive there.
39 in 3 rounds.
Yeah, very, very productive. And Robbie Lawler had 131 significant strikes off 221.
So volume, it was all Diaz.
Yeah, 500 punches in 3 rounds is good. That's entertaining. Very entertaining.
Definitely gave the fans what they were after. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And backing up after the lackluster heavyweight fight, I think they were very much enjoying it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So after that, they did have the Hall of Fame announcements. Some guys that we grew up with, like GSP, going into the Hall of Fame. John Jones got inducted into the Hall of Fame. Of course, was in Vegas then. Had too much alcohol by all accounts. Got a misdemeanor for domestic abuse with his family, his wife and his kids. Got arrested. So it's not looking real great for him. I think he's going to be all right being a misdemeanor, but we'll have to see what happens with that. Some people saying throw the book at him. He's had too many chances in the UFC. Get him out. But who knows? He's trying to angle for the heavyweight. He's supposed to be at 270 pounds. It looks like what is interesting, though, after that happened, after his recent arrest, they did move him down in the pound-for-pound ranking. Usman is now number 1 and John Jones is now number 2.
Full disclosure, I am a big John Jones fight fan inside the octagon. This out of the octagon behaviour, it's got to stop. It's making it really hard, on John Jones fans, let alone what's happened, here domestically. We don't know the full details. I don't want to get into it too much, but we're talking about a guy who should literally be spoken about as up there in the conversation of being one of the best fighters of all time, and just keeps having these out of the octagon indiscretions. He's got to stand that shit out. It's got to go. And I feel for his family. I feel for his fiance here. Obviously, it's in the public eye. But look, for mine, For me, I put where you are as a bloke and as a human being above your accolades in your sport, or the things that you've been able to achieve. And he's got to get rid of this shit. He's only going to keep losing fans. He's only going to keep losing popularity, and possibly deservedly, he might end up in jail if he keeps doing this shit.
Yep.
Yeah, that's it.
Well said, Pepe. Marks, do you want to finish this off on the UFC? What's Israel Adesanya doing?
Yeah. So I guess sort of backing up what he said last week and how he came out around, I guess, New Zealand government and their lockdown restrictions, and how that was affecting not only his camp, Dan Hooker's camp, but the sport in general in New Zealand. He announced this week on Instagram that he's actually moving his camp across to the US. So I suppose rather than being siloed in New Zealand, he's going to silo himself over in the US. So if any of these sort of restrictions, or if, I guess, the COVID environment gets any worse, he doesn't have to worry too much about lockdowns and quarantining and all that sort of stuff.
I believe Volk and Dan Hooker also, they all come out of City Kickboxing, and I potentially think the whole of City Kickboxing, the camp, is moving to the US, looking to rebase themselves, probably in Vegas, around where the UFC headquarters, at least for the foreseeable future, with international travel, just so they can continue their careers at this stage. Which is massive, because that's a huge gym at the moment. They've got 2 world champions and some guys there and thereabouts. So, yeah.
Boys, I tend to harp on it on this podcast, but it's something that's always in the background, is how strict that Australia and New Zealand have gone at this virus, and we're starting to see it. You're going to start losing high-profile athletes. And I think Izzy was saying, that the Super Rugby, within New Zealand was allowed to go ahead, with the NRL obviously operating in bubbles. He's saying, there's no consistency. I just want to go and train with a few guys, 3 or 4 guys, and go home. The New Zealand government said no, and they've lost, one of their premier athletes. It does seem like Volk and Hooker will go and train out of the United States as well. And to be honest, I can't blame them. It's, again, this is a sports podcast. You don't want to get too political, but it's starting to become a little bit of a joke, I think, in terms of how shut down and locked down this country is compared to, say America or Europe. But look, we'll, let's keep it on the sports. That's the news. That's what's happening. Those guys will go train out of the US.
And I mentioned final point, and I mentioned it very quickly. The UFC Hall of Fame. I know GSP, Mark Coleman, John Jones were inducted. Was there any others, Marks?
I believe
I've glossed over that very quickly, but they are all excellent names.
Yeah, no, that's it. I also just remembered it when we're talking about John Jones, because he got inducted for his fight with Gustafsson back in the day. I think probably shout out to Dustin Poirier for receiving the inaugural Forrest Griffin Community Award for his foundation work. Who else? Yeah, I suppose that's most notable, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know the GSP got in there for his career, and then Mark Coleman, one of the originals of the UFC, also got in.
Kevin Randleman as well.
That's the one. So Randleman and Coleman went back and forth a fair bit. Teams too, I believe. So to finish our combat sports news, we should talk about boxing. And Anthony Joshua had his fight on the weekend, and he lost. He went down to the Ukrainian.
Big boil over here, wasn't it? We kind of took this one for granted. Joshua goes through, and we start setting up these Fury fights. But Alexander Usyk had something else to say about it. He's 34. He's from Ukraine, and he's undefeated. So maybe people sleeping on him a little bit. He had to come up from cruiserweight, so maybe people were concerned, would he have the power, would he have the strength to match it with one of the best boxers at the heavyweight division? And it went the distance, this one, didn't it? But Usyk really gave him, I think, a bit of a toweling up in this fight.
Yep, touched him up. I don't think he got a knockdown. He wobbled him a couple of times. Credit to Joshua's recovery ability as well. But yeah, he's just outclassed him, which is kind of surprising, considering we're talking about Anthony Joshua here. Aimed at in the heavyweight division. And like you mean, like, those Fury fights are now solely on hold because there'll be an automatic rematch. I'm pretty sure of this. We'll have to go through that. It does beg the question for Fury doing his rematch already with Wilder. Hopefully he can get through that okay, and then we can replan this all again. And hey, we'll see you in another year's time, and maybe we get these guys eventually fighting. But yeah, it's a fight everyone wants to see, the two countrymen, but they one of them can't keep his belts, and the other one's kind of waiting in the wings and got to do his own rematch. So
that's it. I mean, we can't forget that Joshua also lost to Andy Ruiz Jr. back in 2019 as well. Quickly won that belt back. But yeah, so probably, I don't know what that says about Joshua and his mentality around these fights, but yeah.
Well, I don't think the Ukrainian's going to eat all the tacos in between their rematch like Ruiz did. So we'll have to see what happens there. But yeah, it's another 6 months essentially. You got to wait for any decision about another fight happening, which will then be another 6 months later. We're not talking another year before.
To be honest, it doesn't bother me that much. This kind of came as a shock. Casual boxing fan here, I can admit that. But this keeps it really spicy with another guy, that you got to throw into contention for being a heavyweight champ. And I think it might have been a few episodes ago on the Esky, and I was challenging you boys to say who's the top 10 boxers in the world at the moment, and Alexander Usyk has to be in that discussion, I guess. I think for casual boxing fans, I think this is good for boxing. It's very unexpected for sure. But look, don't mind it. An upset and an underdog story is always welcome here, I think.
That's it. And I think, you made a good point there. Like, this is a good thing for boxing, because it sort of says not all the excitement is around these exhibition matches. Like, we can have good professional fights. Like, we can start storylines here, and
The problem we have that I'm going to mention here with that, though, Monks, is how many people actually remember that Anthony Joshua was having this fight on the weekend.
That is true.
I very much woke up. I was like, oh yeah, Anthony Joshua's fighting on the weekend.
Yeah.
Oh, lost.
Well,
me and Muggs were playing golf, and the fella that was doing the green fees had it on his little laptop, and we were like, oh shit, Mark was fighting. How's he going? So yeah, it did fly a little bit under the radar over here, admittedly. But look, massive result, and it really throws a spanner in the works as to what's going to happen in the heavyweight division.
Yeah, hopefully it's that right. It's the step in the right direction. Like, exhibition fights are going to be where it's at for the moment, but it'll take time. But yeah, hopefully we can get more of these sort of fights, more of these sort of competitions across all the weight classes, and then it gets better.
Monks, did you want to mention anything more about Manny Pack after you talked about it in the intro?
Not too much, really, I guess. So yeah, obviously he retired.
I think he had a 62 and 8-2 record from
yes.
Yeah.
It,
great. It's a monster as a boxer. Dynamite power. You can't say much more about Manny. He's an absolute legend.
Great politician, I heard as well. Vote one, Pacquiao.
Great basketballer as well.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Hey, here's one for you. The number one sport in the Philippines?
Basketball.
Basketball mad. Yeah. Unfortunately, for whatever genetic reason, not one that comes with Filipino genetics, but they love their basketball and they love Manny Pacquiao. So shout out to him for a stellar career. That's
it, definitely, yeah.
Okay, boys, so let's go from fighting to motorsport, and we'll talk about the F1. They headed the GP over the weekend in Russia, in Sochi. It was a very wet weekend. Lando was P1, Sainz was P2, and Russell was P3, which is a very different lineup than you would expect. And then you consider Max Verstappen did start in the 20th, and Lewis Hamilton was 4th.
So Max Verstappen did take a new engine, so that's why I was back at the grid.
Yes, Bottas also took a new engine, but he started ahead because he did qualifying. But largely, this race was dominated by Lando throughout. And Ricciardo did a really good job on the start, and then also did a really good job with their strategy being essentially the head of the train. And he did back that train up a little bit, which I think went very much unnoticed, that he's doing a lot of good support there to help Lando create a bit of a gap between him and all the competitors. There was a lot of action. There was a lot of really great pit strategy, but it all didn't matter. The last 5 laps, it started to rain, and they all had to make decisions about what they were going to do with, do they go to inters? Do they stay on slicks? I saw a diagram that essentially had all the positions of before the rain and then all the positions after where they finished and how that all moved around. And it was, everyone changed positions significantly. The key ones I wanted to kind of mention, say Bottas, for example, was running 14th. He finished 5th in the last 5 laps. Verstappen, he did jump. He jumped 2 positions in the pit strategy for somehow he got in and out of the pits quicker than the guys in front of him. And I'm not sure how that all worked out, but he did. But he ended up finished 2nd. Lando spins out. He decides to stay out on inters, ends up being the wrong decision. It rains too much. He couldn't keep the car on the road. He spins out, finishes 7th, which was unlucky for him. It was going to be his main victory. He would have won that race. But it didn't help him. Hamilton does get the win. He went in for inters early, came out, led the race. As I mentioned, Max had that great strategy to jump the train that was led by Ricciardo. He finished 2nd. Our boy Ricciardo did finish 4th, and Bottas, as I mentioned, did finish 5th. So it was crazy. After all that, where they started and all that race, we still ended up with a Max Lewis 1-2. So yeah, it was a bit of a crazy race, but I thought it did show well that McLaren had turned the corner a bit. They are starting to put themselves there as, hey, we're the third team. We're here to compete. We can compete against these other teams and these other guys. Ricardo has definitely stepped up to help support Lando. And they've both been excellent for their own rights. And for where they were Monza last week on 1-2, they've kind of started to ascend. But it's still Max and Lewis's championship to lose, from my mind. What were your thoughts, Max?
Yeah, great race. The rain towards the end definitely made it very, very interesting. I think it was very unfortunate for Lando to lose that lead. I think obviously he stayed out for one lap too long. He seemed pretty confident on, I think he was running slicks at the time. I don't know if it was a hard or medium compound. Obviously, Hamilton went in the lap before to get inters for the rain. And then, it was all over from there. I think even Lando, after he spun out, he had a little bit of incident entering pit lane as well. He spun out again.
They couldn't stop the car. They had to
get
it around the car, so he had to go back on the track, turn around and come back on, which is usually a penalty, but they gave him a reprieve in this regards and said, hey, it was wet. You couldn't stop the car. We understand.
Yeah, that's it.
Got off slightly.
Yeah, so unfortunate for him, but great race. Like you said, McLaren's there or thereabouts. I think they're doing really well. They've been able to perform really well in qualifying, which I think is what set them up in all the main races. Hopefully Ricardo can really have a good end towards the season now. And we'll see where it all ends up.
Yep. Yeah, I think there's 10 races left in the season.
That up.
Turkey, United States.
Seven, I think.
7. Yeah.
Abu Dhabi. They just added Qatar, so there's 8, I think. Because that was the news just before the podcast kicked off. They've added Qatar as a race into the calendar in November, which I think it's going to replace like the Japan or the Australian GP, which has already been cancelled. What is interesting though, they signed a 10-year deal, so they've going to have the Qatar race on the calendar for the next 10 years. So I'm not sure if that means there's going to be an extra race next season, or they're going to maybe they drop one of the European extra races they've added due to COVID and doing the international travel. But they've got an extra. Qatar has been added to the calendar, so they will have that race.
They got some money over there, boys. They've got a soccer World Cup incoming. There's no doubt. There's some dollars going out of Doha.
Yeah, and nothing better than to throw it at F1 to get Qatar on the map. Hey, it's a great idea leading up to the World Cup. It was like, hey, come check us out. We can hold events. I wonder whether they'll run this during the day or the night, this race, or it'd be interesting. Their weather, it'd be their winter though, wouldn't it?
November.
Coming into their winter.
Yeah. So, but even still, it might still be 30 degrees.
I can't imagine it'll be snowing.
Yeah. Could be a very hot race, and it'll be interesting to see how the cars manage that heat with that.
That's it. I don't think it's going to be a wet race. Let's put it that
way. Maybe some oil on the track, but no rain.
Oh, I like that. I reckon they've sucked all the oil out of it. I think it's all been converted into skyscrapers and aeroplanes.
That's it.
All right. Let's finish off the podcast. We've got soccer and golf to talk about. What's happening in the United Champions League?
Boys, Sheriff, get around them. The Moldovans. I shouted them a beer the other week. The first team ever from Moldova to make the Champions League round of 32. And guess what? They beat Real Madrid in the Bernabeu 2-1. They're $2.50 to make it out of the group, and they are top of that group, which includes Inter Milan. So we'll definitely be keeping an eye on them. I think they were about $19 to win that game. I did see one punter. I think he threw a $2 bet with them and Bruges amongst a few others. Won $8,500. Thanks very much for coming. PSG, they won 2-0 over Man City. A lot of people think these two teams are going deep in the Champions League. Messi had a nice goal. And PSG, last time I checked, they are tournament favourites. They've never won the comp, so it'll be big for them, the Parisians, with the newly acquired Lionel Messi to take out their first Champions League. They've
loaded up for this tournament. So
they are. They've put their eggs in this one. But I tell you what, you got to watch out for Bayern Munich. They are looking very good. They smoked Dynamo Kiev 5-0. For mine, they've looked the better side. It is early days. Liverpool, they smashed Porto 5-1. There was some woeful goalkeeping. If you want to look at a bit of Benny Hill kind of goalkeeping, check out the highlights from that one in Liverpool and Porto. Benfica got the win over Barcelona 3-0. Barcelona without Messi looking very susceptible, haven't been going great in La Liga and off to a very poor start here in the Champions League. And United, coming off that loss to Aston Villa in the Premier League over the weekend, they had a 2-1 win over Villarreal, and Ronaldo scored. And I tell you what, the rig doesn't look 36. Let's put it that way. The shirt came off. I think you cop a yellow card for that these days. I think you'd cop a lot more, to be honest. And that
it was late in the match too. Like, it was for them to win, and it was late. Like, to put a
I love it. Take away the cards, mate. I imagine the money that they made out of those pictures from a few ladies and men around the world that don't mind seeing a shirtless Ronaldo. I think that would have paid for itself. I know it's early days. We wouldn't mind just having a quick look here at the standings after 2 rounds. PSG, they do lead Group A with Club Brugge. You'd imagine, though, Man City will come back for that one there. Liverpool and Atletico, I think they go through in Group B. Group C, Ajax and Borussia Dortmund, I think they get out of there. Group D is the one that's so interesting now, with Sheriff Tiraspol leading the group ahead of Madrid, Inter, and Shakhtar Donetsk. Get around them. They're an underdog out of Moldova. Group E, we've got Bayern Munich and Barcelona coming dead last in that group. I think Bayern go deep here.
Yeah, I don't know. Barca might not get out of the group.
It seems that way.
Yeah.
Group F is really kind of evenly poised. You got Atalanta, Young Boys, United, and Villarreal there. Group G, again, quite evenly poised with Red Bull Salzburg, Sevilla, Wolfsburg, and Lille. And Group H, Juventus had a win over Chelsea last night. I think they're the 2 teams to get out of that group. Early stages in the Champions League, a few upsets. It's good viewing.
Yep. Yeah, and there's another round of EPL, of course, on the weekend for the English Premier League. Liverpool versus Man City is probably my pick of the games for the weekend.
Yeah, big one there. The top 4 kind of starting to take shape, as you would expect. Arsenal and Tottenham really struggling, which is
5 and 6.
which is cool. Like, I think we mentioned that maybe last week. Up the goals. You'd imagine they drop off, but it's nice to see Arsenal and Tottenham way back there. Just wouldn't mind Man City dropping off a little bit, but we'll see what.
All right, Pepe, finishes off with the golf. What happened in the Ryder Cup?
Thanks for sticking with us. Anyone who is this far deep into the podcast, the Ryder Cup wrapped up. Europe versus America over the weekend, and the Americans got it done quite comfortably. The Europeans were actually favoured with the bookies before this one in Wisconsin. And look, we spoke about it, I don't know, a few months ago with the whole Bryson and Brooks feud. And I think it might be a little bit made for television. I don't think these guys hate each other too much. They had the Step Brothers shirt made with Brooks being one, John C. Reilly, and Will Ferrell being Bryson DeChambeau. Quite an interesting T-shirt. And the boys, they were sculling beers, as we would say down under, or as they would say up there in North America. They were on the chug. They were chugging beers. It means a lot to them. The USA wins a Ryder Cup quite comfortably.
Thank you, Peps. And with that, that ends today's show of On The Esky and the sports that we had been following during the week. Thank you all if you've listened this deep into the podcast. As always, we appreciate it. Get at us in the comments, subscribe, like, and follow our socials as you will. Thank you, boys, for coming out and chatting as always. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for the session.
Thank you, lads. Looking forward to the NRL Grand Final. Saturday night, we'll be talking with the Delhi Capitals, and I think within the few upcoming weeks, we might be able to move back to the studio and get out of the remote learning, if you will.
Definitely.
Not the best on the sound quality, not the best internet over here, but I'm looking forward to seeing you boys in person and getting stuck in the studio.
Definitely. Thank you, lads. As always, we'll see you again next week.
Cheers.
Catch you, boys.
Bye.
Bye.